Amidst the gloomy void, mysterious black stones drift through space, surrounded by vibrant magical circles emitting unstable energy. A massive pillar of purple light pierces the sky, unleashing a terrifying roar that shakes the entire city to its core. The overwhelming presence of the hostile force radiates a thick, dense aura of bloodlust. Beneath the enemy's feet, tens of thousands of grotesque monsters flood the streets, spreading horror among the desperate people fleeing for their lives. Screams of despair ring out as a father falls, leaving his child stunned and helpless before the Reaper's scythe. Chaos ensues as the monsters hunt humans down every alleyway, leaving absolutely no escape. A cold, dark silhouette swings a razor-sharp weapon, ending the life of an unfortunate soul right on the pavement. Blue flames erupt violently, incinerating everything in sight amidst deafening explosions. A vortex of blue magic swirls intensely, shielding a mother and child as they cling to each other at the center of the deadly storm. In this life-or-death moment, the mother's final message rings out, urging Kale to survive at any cost. Kale screams in tears, feeling unbearable pain as he watches his mother slowly fade away. The call of Kale's name shatters the nightmare, pulling him back to the suffocating reality. Litz turns back with a worried look at Kale, who is still shaken from the horrific dream he just had. Litz doesn't believe Kale's dismissals, her eyes filled with suspicion and concern. Kale stares blankly at the tears still clinging to his face, trying to mask his deep-seated pain. The atmosphere turns silent, leaving only awkwardness as Kale and Litz confront their true feelings. Thaus interrupts the conversation, teasing Kale about his habitual napping. A giant screen displays the history of the brutal war and the rise of the superpowered beings. Thaus continues to explain the identity of the mysterious figure leading the northern region, leaving Kale stunned. Kale silently ponders that mysterious name, a name he hears everywhere he goes. Thaus enthusiastically talks about the importance of that figure, the first human superhuman who holds all the secrets regarding the monsters. An image of Tajal appears, radiating the solemn dignity of a god. Information regarding the awakening of superpowers through ancient stone pillars sends the crowd into a frenzy. Tajal stands before everyone, loudly declaring that he brings a chance to change fate for all. Magical energy erupts from the magic circle, casting a blinding light across the entire hall. The crowd of students cheers in excitement, longing to grasp that great power. Thaus turns to Kale with a hopeful expression, believing this is the opportunity they have been waiting for. Kale walks away silently, ignoring Thaus' call and Lith's attempt to stop him. Kale's eyes flash with a cold red light, signaling that a dangerous intent is slowly taking shape. Lith stands frozen in the shadows, her eyes showing clear shock as she senses an energy source filled with murderous intent right behind her. Kale cannot hide his excitement, his eyes glowing with a sinister red hue now that the fated moment has finally arrived. Thaus fails to activate the magic stone, leading the cold-hearted proctor to announce his disqualification and call the next name. Crowd murmurs anxiously upon seeing a talented athlete fail. Litz tries to reassure everyone that awakening doesn't depend on physical fitness. Failure notifications ring out repeatedly as the proctor mercilessly pushes the underperforming students out of the testing zone. The surrounding students begin to panic at the extremely low success rate, fearing the entire academy will be wiped out. Proctor, wearing black glasses, loudly calls out the name of Thaus, known for his arrogant reputation at school. The crowd whispers with resentment about Thaus, hoping he fails so they won't have to endure his oppression later. Suddenly, a surge of blue electricity explodes violently around Thaus, signaling the awakening of a rare ability. Pleased with his success, Thaus believes that from now on, powerful figures like Tajal will take notice of him. The system notification board appears, confirming Thaus as a lightning element mage with stats well above average. 0. Litz watches from a distance, assessing Thaus' stats with high expectations, though she feels a flicker of regret that his potential is capped at the lowest tier. 1. Thaus celebrates his victory with arrogance, baffled by Kale's indifferent attitude toward his achievement. 2. Without a word of explanation, Kale coldly pushes Thaus aside to approach the magic stone. 3. Thaus screams in fury, hurling insults at Kale for daring to lay a hand on him. 4. Reaching his breaking point, Thaus prepares to unleash his full rage upon Kale. 5. The crowd is stunned to realize that the one who pushed Thaus is Kale, a student from Class 5 whom everyone assumed would be expelled soon. 6. Tajal keeps her eyes on Kale, sensing an intense and dangerous surge of emotion radiating from him. 7. As Kale places his hand on the stone, the obsession with that fateful day remains the fuel for his burning hatred. 8. Kale's gaze shifts, a cold, ruthless determination is etched into every feature of his face. 9. A green energy sword erupts, engulfing the space around Kale. 10. An ancient magical entity manifests behind Kale, exuding an overwhelming pressure that leaves everyone breathless. 11. Kale stands at the center of the energy surge, creating a spectacle that is both majestic and enigmatic. 12. The explosive energy spirals hundreds of meters high, bathing the entire school grounds in a mystical light. 13. The onlookers cannot hide their shock, collectively gasping in awe at Kale's power. 14. Liths is stunned to recognize this as the aura of a mutant, the rarest grade among the 4 major classes. 15. Thou stands frozen, his face twisted with envy and fear at Kale's overwhelming dominance. 16. Lost in his inner consciousness, Kale wonders if he has truly transcended his own limits. 17. Kale stares around blankly, trying to process what just happened after that terrifying burst of energy. 18. The system interface reveals a shocking truth. Kale is officially classified as a mutant with an S-rank talent called Nirvana. 19. Kale stares at the system board in horror, despairing as he realizes he is stuck at level 0 with all stats at a flat 0. 20. Unexpectedly, the S-rank Nirvana talent activates, immediately buffing all of Kale's stats by 200 points. 21. Kale snaps to attention, realizing that his all-seeing eye skill was the key to triggering Nirvana and boosting his power. 22. With a total stat count of 800, Kale is ready to execute his plan to face any danger standing in his way. 23. A blinding flash of light erupts, forcing everyone nearby to shield their eyes from the unbearable intensity. 24. At the center of the glare, Kale stands tall, emitting an aura that completely dominates the surroundings. 25. Faust trembles, unable to believe his eyes at the sudden transformation of Kale. 26. Even the witnesses are left bewildered, realizing that Kale is the one wielding such incredible power. 27. Kale coldly adjusts his tie, his blue eyes glowing as if preparing for an actual battle. 28. The system confirms Kale's identity as a mutant class character with superior power stats. 29. The crowd begins to murmur, stunned by Kale's perfect metamorphosis. 30. Thaus is livid, he cannot accept that Kale has stolen the spotlight and attention that rightfully belonged to him. 31. In a fit of rage, Thaus launches an electric attack, determined to drag Kale back into the mud. 32. The bolt of electricity tears through the air, streaking toward Kale before the eyes of the entire student body. 33. Thaus roars the name of his technique, Silver Serpent, determined to finish Kale off right there. 34. Kale calmly accepts the attack, the system instantly triggering All-Seeing Eye to analyze the threat. 35. The decoding process speeds up, Kale is fully in control of the situation against Thaus' assault. 36. Thaus' attack suddenly dissolves into thin air, leaving the arena empty and everyone in utter bewilderment. 37. The power of the Silver Serpent is completely negated, leaving no trace on the wooden floor. 38. The crowd is utterly confused, unable to comprehend what just happened to Kale. 39. In a split second, Kale has moved behind Thaus, leaving him frozen in terror. Kale places his hand on Thaus' shoulder, warning him of the murderous aura he just sensed. Everyone is stunned, unable to comprehend how Kale could close the distance to Thaus so quickly. Thaus collapses to the ground, completely stripped of his initial confidence in the face of Kale's overwhelming dominance. The decoding process hits 99%. Kale is inching closer to completely seizing Thaus' power. The system announces that Kale has successfully absorbed the Thunder Heart skill from Thaus. The onlookers gasp in shock, they never expected Kale to pull off such a feat once again. Kale realizes that each time a decoding is successful, he is transported to a special dimension within the system. A new skill board appears, confirming that Kale now possesses the Thunder Heart with the ability to absorb and enhance speed. Kale stands in the center of the arena, surrounded by powerful blue electricity, fully controlling the flow of the battle. Kale becomes the center of attention as blue lightning envelopes his body, leaving those around him in complete shock and utter confusion. Feeling the surge of power, Kale realizes his personal stats have just reached a new breakthrough threshold. The system board clearly displays the progress. Kale's strength, agility, defense, and magic power have all simultaneously increased from 200 to 210, bringing his total stat count to 840. The sky suddenly darkens, and raindrops begin to fall while everyone remains bewildered by the strange phenomenon occurring right above them. A massive black boulder hurtles down from the sky, exerting terrifying pressure that weighs heavily upon the Academy's atmosphere. Liths panics at the sight of the boulder and immediately orders everyone to evacuate urgently, following standard training procedures. Amidst the chaos, Liths urges Tejal to leave the area immediately, as they are not combatants capable of facing such a threat. Tejal calmly replies that if people like them panic and flee, the students will only fall further into despair. While the crowd of students scatters in a frenzy, Kale stands firm in the center of the yard, his gaze fixed on the descending boulder. The boulder slams into the ground, triggering violent tremors and a surge of energy that coats the entire area. Thaus is horrified as he senses the danger radiating from the barrier. He urges Kale to run away immediately because monsters are about to swarm out. Thaus keeps shouting, desperately trying to warn Kale that he is no match for the monsters and should leave it to others to handle. Kale turns to look at Liths with a calm expression, simply asking her to place her trust in him. Liths cannot hide her anxiety. She grabs Thaus by the collar and delivers a harsh warning about Kale's inevitable death. Anxiety is evident in every word Thaus utters, as he cannot fathom why Liths would let Kale march to his own doom. Kale flashes a mysterious smile, his eyes glowing with a gleam of red, eager for the challenge that lies ahead. Feeling the power that has just awakened, Kale tells himself that the first monster to appear is the perfect target to test his strength. A black bone warrior emerges. The stat board displays level 8 with superior defensive talents as it faces Kale head-on. Kale channels all his strength into his fist as lightning crackling around his body glows brilliantly. It is time to test the power of this new ultimate move. Without a moment's hesitation, Kale charges straight at the iron cage entity with terrifying speed. The surging lightning energy creates a truly awe-inspiring spectacle. Kale's eyes burn red with determination as he silently vows that he will not let anyone else be sacrificed. Kale's lightning strike lands directly on the target, creating an earth-shattering collision. The horrific force blasts the iron cage entity straight into the school building, obliterating every obstacle in its path. Witnessing the scene, Betty is left in total shock. Kale's power far exceeds all expectations, even though he has only just leveled up. But the iron cage entity remains calm, judging that no matter how strong Kale becomes, he still lacks the ability to pierce the defense of the black bone monster. Blue bone flames erupt violently, incinerating everything they touch. Once hit, the pain will never end. Betty screams in panic as she sees Kale surrounded by those wicked flames. The iron cage entity laughs triumphantly, believing that Kale will soon be reduced to ash. Kale calmly accepts the flames, realizing that taking the hit directly is the key to accelerating the decoding process. Betty cries out in horror, knowing full well that even a level would struggle to survive these flames. Amidst the sea of fire, Kale feels the heat searing his body, wondering if this sensation is the same pain his mother once endured. Memories of his mother flood Kale's mind, the images blurring within the smoke and fire. Master Ignis watches from a distance with expectant eyes, believing that this is not yet Kale's limit. Kale makes a bold declaration: the moment he escapes from the Blue Lotus will be the moment the iron cage entity pays the price. Seeing the Blue Lotus reappear, those around him begin to harbor hope for a miracle. Kale focuses intensely, urging omniscient clairvoyance to find a weakness in the iron cage entity. A system notification appears: Kale has officially learned the skill Glacial Body. Every stat skyrockets, and all debuffs are cleared. A new wave of power spreads as Kale stands in the center of the Blue Lotus, ready for a counterattack. Kale's body is enveloped in icy power. He is now a completely different person. Betty cheers in pure joy. They cannot believe their eyes seeing Kale fully recovered. Betty is astonished, questioning Kale's mysterious class as he continues to display such contradictory skills. Kale looks at his hands, planning to test the limits of this new skill in the future. The iron cage entity roars, preparing for the next wave of attacks. Kale activates Glacial Body, blocking the blue bone flames with eternal ice. The icy power surges, repelling every attack from the iron cage entity. Kale is ready. He will crush the iron cage entity with the power he has just obtained. Kale unleashes a powerful lightning strike, crushing the target in the blink of an eye. Kale is shrouded in blue electricity, radiating an extreme killing intent. With just a wave of his hand, Kale sweeps away the enemies with a lightning-infused ultimate move. Witnessing Kale's terrifying speed, the surrounding students are left in utter shock. Betty and the others are unable to believe their eyes at the sight of Kale's power. Kale is secretly amazed by the perfect balance of offense and defense provided by the ice ultimate he just awakened. Shards of shattered ice fall to the ground as Kale stands tall and overwhelming. As the battlefield momentarily falls silent, a voice calls out from behind Kale. Betty runs over and gives Kale a tight hug, sighing in relief that he has claimed victory. Kale remains calm, his eyes searching through those around him for a specific person. Kale glances through the crowd, wondering if Betty is still angry with him. Betty stands beside the iron cage entity, left in awe as she watches Kale take down a rank beast all on his own. Betty reassures Kale that she is simply trying to push herself harder. Kale listens in silence, his expression still clouded with a hint of hesitation. Master Ignis steps forward, confronting Kale with an air of absolute authority. The crowd begins to whisper and gossip as they witness Master Ignis approaching Kale. Betty hurries away to search for the person she needs to find. The iron cage entity speaks up, affirming that Kale is truly a special individual. Kale stands motionless, his sharp emerald eyes staring directly at the iron cage entity. The iron cage entity gazes deep into Kale's soul, a place consumed by pure hatred. The iron cage entity is intrigued by the tragic past that forged the Kale of today. Kale's mind drifts back to a horrific memory from 10 years ago. Pain surges through Kale as he remembers the moment his parents sacrificed their lives to protect him in the heat of battle. Memories of the brutal massacre flood back, showing the moment Kale watched his loved ones fall. In the memory, his mother pleads with Kale to take hold of his own future. Kale chokes out a cry for his mother, his heart shattering from the agonizing pain. Fury explodes within him. Kale refuses to accept such a cruel and merciless destiny. A colossal demonic entity emerges, shrouding the entire area in a suffocating dark energy. Kale stands small and fragile before the overwhelming presence of this powerful entity. Kale braces himself against the pain, his eyes igniting with a fierce determination. As his hatred overflows, Kale vows to completely eradicate the monsters that strip everything away from him. The Iron Cage entity speaks coldly, mocking the weakness of those who drown themselves in vengeance. Kale remains unfazed, asserting that this very pain is the fuel that feeds his righteous wrath. Salvation Alliance was established to gather the world's most elite individuals to stand against the monster invasion. The Iron Cage entity continues to detail the luxurious privileges and high-level treatment a member of the Alliance enjoys. However, the Iron Cage entity emphasizes that the Alliance never wastes its resources on the lazy or incompetent. The entity's gaze seems to pierce through Kale, waiting to see the young man's resolve. Kale brushes aside all material gains, for his sole objective is the strength required to annihilate the monsters. Kale's eyes blaze with conviction as he boldly declares his desire to become a savior. Iron Cage entity explains the selection tournament where candidates must fight for a chance to become official members. When Kale asks about the highest record ever achieved, the Iron Cage entity doesn't hesitate to speak of a legend. That was the individual who set an unimaginable score record years ago. The Iron Cage entity reveals the person was a disciple of Master Ignis, a being known as the Light of the Universe. The Iron Cage entity advises Kale not to chase the shadow of his predecessor, as such greatness only leads to despair. Kale stands in silence. Those words don't discourage him but instead sharpen his will to fight. With his physique honed to perfection, Kale swears to break past every existing limit. The Iron Cage entity narrows its eyes, sensing the inferno of ambition burning inside Kale. Iron Cage entity sarcastically remarks that Kale is the shining beacon of hope that humanity has been waiting for. Staring intently at Kale, the Iron Cage entity declares that the dawn everyone has long awaited has finally arrived. Standing before Kale was a colossal structure, a place shrouded in the world's most horrifying secrets. The Iron Cage entity explains the gates leading to the monster world where the gifted must venture to survive. The Iron Cage entity reveals that this facility was built around an ancient stone where monsters relentlessly pour out. Kale was stunned to learn of the existence of dungeon barriers fraught with peril. The Iron Cage entity warns of the rookie graveyard where the mortality rate for newcomers is at its peak. Iron Cage entity recounts the feat of a past legend, one who conquered this dungeon in record-breaking time. The Iron Cage entity issues the final challenge, giving Kale exactly minutes to prove his worth. Kale clenches his fists, ready to step into a fated battle where the line between life and death is paper-thin. The system delivers an ultimatum: clear this dungeon in under minutes. Kale stands there, his gaze sharp as he looks toward the massive architecture where the Iron Cage entity awaits. In the middle of the lobby, all eyes are fixed on Kale, a so-called level 0 actually daring to show up in a place reserved only for those who push beyond their limits. Kale clenches his fist tightly. The image of Ignis shines like a guiding flame, urging Kale to become stronger, to be worthy of being a legend's disciple. Level 10 dungeon. Kale frowns as he looks at the notification board. Will the 2-level gap compared to the monsters at school be an insurmountable abyss for Kale? The surrounding crowd whispers, their eyes filled with suspicion. Could this level 0 rookie be backed by some major power? Kale walks with confidence, ignoring the gossip. Kale didn't come here to flirt. Kale came here to conquer. Kale approaches the reception counter, his voice firm as he demands to register for the dungeon. Solo. Kale's short, clipped answer makes the atmosphere around them go completely silent. Silence engulfs the entire reception area. Everyone is stunned by Kale's reckless decision. Tejal cannot hide her annoyance. Tejal assumes Kale is just trying to grab attention through meaningless flirtation. Tejal warns him sternly, the dungeon is not a game, it is a place where the line between life and death is incredibly fragile. The surrounding crowd jeers, convinced that Kale will soon meet his failure and leave in humiliation. Kale remains calm, asserting that his only goal is to challenge the dungeon. Tejal sighs in frustration, offering one final suggestion to drive Kale away. Kale is completely unfazed, firmly refusing the suggestion and demanding that the registration procedure be completed. Kale's eyes turn cold, exuding an overwhelming aura that forces Tejal to hesitate. Angrily, Tejal throws the confirmation bracelet at Kale, indifferent to whether Kale lives or dies. Kale puts on the bracelet, ignoring the taunts of the crowd waiting for him to fail. Even with an S-rank talent, the crowd still believes that at level 0 it is nothing but a wasted effort for Kale. Kale heads toward the dungeon entrance, preparing for his very first leap forward. Beep sounds. The system confirms access. Kale officially enters the game. 3 minutes. That is the goal Kale has set for this hunt. A blaze of red energy erupts, and Kale dashes deep into the dungeon with wind-tearing speed. Space inside is larger than expected. This is the first time Kale has faced a real barrier. Suddenly, Kale spots his target. His eyes become sharp as blades. Kale's arm transforms, covered in sharp armor, ready for the finishing blow. A level 4 wood spirit appears. Its stats are insignificant compared to Kale's latent power. A terrifying strike descends, tearing through space. Kale wears an arrogant smirk, holding his weapon, ready to crush the monsters. The wood spirits tremble before Kale's brutality. The slaughter has only just begun. Kale stands facing a pack of stone monsters, the surrounding space thick with killing intent. Tejal anxiously asks Ignis about the risky decision to push Kale into this labyrinth filled with danger. Ignis coldly declares that humans can never surpass Tejal, leaving her stunned. Tejal recalls the moment Kale destroyed a stone monster with just a wave of his hand. His eyes back then were truly terrifying. Those were not the eyes of an ordinary human, but the detachment and solitude of a god. Ignis watches Kale's back, silently judging him as a rough diamond with the potential to surpass even Tejal. Ignis continues to assert that Kale is a demon consumed by hatred. Kale coldly crushes the head of a stone monster, a black-red aura enveloping his body. Kale arrogantly remarks that these weak stone monsters aren't even enough to trigger a skill. Killing intent bursts from Kale, his eyes burning red as if to incinerate everything in his path. Without hesitation, Kale swings his arm, a powerful strike tearing the space apart. Kale surveys the rubble at his feet, his voice heavy with disappointment at the pathetic strength of the stone monsters. Kale wonders if this is truly the newbie graveyard as rumored. Kale narrows his eyes, he has sensed the looming danger. A colossal entity composed of wood and stone emerges, radiating an ominous aura. Its power is overwhelming, suffocating the surrounding space. Kale realizes this creature possesses immense regenerative abilities and formidable defenses. Without hesitation, Kale activates his skill, his fists encased in freezing ice. Kale channels all his strength, determined to land a fatal blow to suppress the stone monster's regeneration. Kale's strike tears through the air, and the system's decoding progress spikes to 17%. At 21% progress, Kale pours his force into a slash, cleaving through everything in its path. The giant stone monster is split in two, its glowing yellow eyes beginning to crack. Kale smirks cruelly, vowing to hack the stone monster into sawdust to see how it regenerates now. Successive slashes rain down, the stone monster is torn to shreds under Kale's overwhelming power. The stone monster's rocky body crumbles into tiny pieces, scattering everywhere. Kale gasps for air, realizing that maintaining this battle state for too long is draining his mana reserves. Kale stands amidst the ruins, breathing heavily, with stone shards still hovering in the air around him. But suddenly, the stone monster's auto-regeneration triggers, and the fragments begin to merge back together. Kale is besieged by the stone monster's sharp attacks. He grits his teeth, realizing that minor damage cannot finish off a stone monster. Kale does not waver. Each time the stone monster regenerates, Kale's Omni-Eye skill decodes its structure faster. Kale calculates his strategy. If he temporarily deactivates Ice Body to save energy and uses Soul Lightning to kite, he can secure victory before the decoding process completes. Time is running out. Kale lunges forward with his sword crackling with powerful electricity as decoding progress hits 75%. Kale decides to go all in, activating both Ice Body and Soul Lightning simultaneously, forcing the stone monster to continuously regenerate to speed up the decoding. Kale leaps to dodge the stone spikes lunging from the stone monster, while the electrical discharge around his body forms a sturdy protective barrier. Kale understands the risk. If his energy runs out and Omni-Eye stops, death is his only outcome. Kale has no path of retreat. With decoding progress hitting 80%, he must bet his life on this very moment. Kale casts aside his fear, pouring all his remaining strength into the next strike as progress reaches 85%. A burst of electrical energy erupts from Kale, shaking the surrounding space violently. Kale's finishing slash tears through the stone monster's hardened shell, leaving a deep gaping wound. Kale coughs up blood. He tried his best, but his energy was depleted just before landing the killing blow on the stone monster. Kale's body is pierced by stone shards from the monster, his health bar displaying 99% damage. The situation has become dire for Kale. But at that very moment, Kale realizes he won the bet. Omni-Eye did not consume energy during the decoding process. The blue regeneration skill decoding reaches 100% and a new surge of power rises within Kale. The blue regeneration skill has been fully decoded and Kale has officially learned a new ultimate technique, Lotus Burst. Rank 2 Lotus Burst is activated, allowing Kale to expend mana to detonate himself, dealing area of effect damage within a 5-meter radius. Kale is enveloped in a radiant blue lotus. All his stats increase by 20 points and all negative status effects are cleansed. The stone monster glares at Kale, seemingly sensing the threat from the person standing before it. Kale decisively activates Lotus Burst, bracing for a devastating counterattack against the stone monster. Kale claps his hands, a sharp, crisp sound signaling the onset of the blast. A massive explosion erupts, flames consuming everything in the vicinity of Kale and the stone monster. The sheer force of the blast obliterates every remnant, leaving the stone monster completely crushed. Kale pants heavily, the sensation of unleashed self-detonation feeling absolutely exhilarating. Only a third of his energy was consumed, yet the destructive power was immense. Clearing out monsters has become a breeze for Kale. Kale stands amidst the debris, amazed by his own capacity for instantaneous energy regeneration. Outside the labyrinth, Tejal anxiously watches the notification board. Kale has been inside for nearly 3 minutes and still hasn't returned. Tejal is restless, believing they should summon a rescue team immediately. Tejal thinks to herself that even if Kale could escape a level 10 monster, defeating it in under 3 minutes is far too naive a thought. The notification board flares with light, establishing a new record. Every eye in the hall turns toward it in utter astonishment. Tejal is stunned, her eyes widening behind her glasses. Disbelief is etched across her face as she witnesses the impossible. In less than 3 minutes, Kale has cleared a level 10 dungeon. A new record is set, shattering all previous limits. Kale emerges from the dungeon, his breathing ragged, his body stained with monster blood. The leaderboard clearly displays Kale's name at the top, surpassing even Tejal with a staggering time gap. Crowd buzzes with talk about Kale surviving despite being covered in blood, while also marveling at how his level remains stagnant. Kale remains unfazed. He steps directly toward Ignis and asks to begin his true training. Kale's gaze is sharp and determined, awaiting a response from Ignis. Tejal watches quietly, a mix of indescribable emotions rising within her as she sees Ignis appear genuinely pleased with his new student. Those around them cannot believe Kale is a student of Ignis, a man who only selects the most exceptional individuals. Tejal shyly approaches, hands Kale his record-breaking reward, and doesn't forget to apologize for having underestimated him. Kale accepts the reward, calmly replying that for a level 0 to challenge a level 10 dungeon, it truly was a reckless act. Kale asserts that if Tejal hadn't cared, she wouldn't have tried to stop him, and he is grateful for her concern. Tejal turns bright red, overwhelmed by shyness at Kale's blunt honesty. Tejal quickly regains her stern demeanor, urging Kale to keep up if he doesn't want to be left behind. Tejal warns Kale not to get complacent just because he became Ignis's student, while Ignis decides it's time to increase the difficulty. Ignis declares that with his current power, Kale is ready to venture into elite dungeons. As the three of them walk, Ignis begins to lecture on the most important factor for becoming strong. Ignis points out that one's race is the key, while analyzing the difference between monsters acting on instinct and those possessing intelligence. Enemies with intelligence equal to or greater than humans are the true threats and the most difficult to deal with. Tejal listens intently as Ignis explains that only humans possess a class system, which creates the disparity in stats. Tejal emphasizes that the difficulty of elite dungeons will skyrocket and tells Kale to prepare for the trip to the North 4 sector. Kale is deep in thought, his eyes flashing as he asks about the ability of intelligent monsters to feel pain. Tejal senses a terrifying killing intent radiating from Kale, sending shivers down her spine. The crowd gossips about Kale being sent to the North 4 sector, which is controlled by Leslie. They whisper about the cruelty of Leslie, who is rumored to kill anyone who dares to oppose him. Leslie, the son of the North 4 sector manager, is enjoying a life of luxury with the devoted service of his subordinates. Leslie casually declares that all dungeons in the North 4 sector are under his control and he can go whenever he pleases. With an arrogant smirk, Leslie asserts that only the inferior are forced to wait in line. Kale carefully opened the intricately carved wooden box, revealing a gemstone emitting a mysterious glow inside. In the quiet space, Kale sat opposite Betty and her father, questioning them about the presence of this stone. Kale picked up the stone, his eyes filled with suspicion as he asked about the origin of this strange item. Kale recalled the moment he defeated the monster in the dungeon, where a similar stone had dropped from its carcass. Kale noticed a distinct difference while observing the stone in his hand. It wasn't quite like what he had seen before. Light from the stone cast a glow upon Kale's thoughtful face. Everything remained a mystery. Betty was astonished to see the intermediate-grade stone. She couldn't understand why it had appeared in the dungeon. Betty smiled and explained to Kale, calling it an experience stone, something every rookie needs to know about. Betty elaborated on the mechanism of absorbing experience energy from the fallen to level up. Betty continued to emphasize that by simply crushing the stone, the energy inside would be fully absorbed. Kale clenched his fist and the stone shattered under the pressure, releasing a brilliant stream of green energy. Betty still looked confused. She wondered about the unusual formation of the stone inside the enclosed dungeon. Betty's father spoke up, suggesting that it was all thanks to Kale's special talent. Kale looked toward Betty's father in surprise. He didn't expect his talent to be the reason. Betty's father continued his analysis, pointing out the common rules of experience absorption. Betty's father pointed out that Kale had defeated the monster but failed to level up, which proved the energy had condensed. Betty recalled the event at the academy, where she and the others had absorbed energy from the skeleton. Betty's father concluded that since the dungeon was an enclosed space, the energy couldn't escape and thus condensed into the stone. Unable to hide her shock, Betty asked how Kale could increase his stats if he couldn't level up. Betty's father sternly warned him, reminding him that Kale's talent must not be exposed to the outside world. Betty's father gave Kale full discretion over the stone while announcing that he was about to head to a meeting. Betty's father listed the strict rules that Kale must follow while he was away. Kale responded solemnly, accepting all orders from Betty's father. A confident smile flickered on Kale's lips. He was ready for the upcoming challenge. At the dungeon, a group of people were arguing fiercely with the guards about their right to enter. The strangers showed no fear, bluntly opposing the tyranny of Leslie's faction. The tension reached its peak when they threatened to report it to the Association of Transcendence. Without further delay, a powerful punch landed, ending the debate with violence. Hank launched a decisive attack, proving his overwhelming power against those standing in his way. Powerful strike collided forcefully, creating tremors that shook the space. Hank, full of arrogance, declared that no one could survive his Earth Vein spike technique, then growled, asking who Kale was to dare attack him. But Hank was instantly stunned when Kale calmly replied that the attack hadn't caused the slightest bit of damage. Hank was dumbfounded. He couldn't believe that Kale could endure the Earth Vein spike with its terrifying piercing power and remain completely unscathed. Not giving Kale a chance to steady himself, Hank tensed up, his eyes burning with murderous intent as he prepared a brutal counterattack. Hank lunged forward like lightning, his muscular hands tightly gripping the neck of someone who had fallen. With a whistling of wind, Hank delivered a fatal blow, causing the victim to scream in desperate pain. Witnessing the horrific scene, the surrounding crowd couldn't help but panic upon realizing the assailant was Hank, one of Leslie's 4 elite henchmen, who possessed a level 12 metal-type ability. Hank tightened his grip on his prey, threatening that anyone who dared to set foot in the maze without Leslie's permission would meet a similar tragic fate. Hank coldly ordered his subordinates to ignore those who had been defeated and leave them lying there. Leslie's henchmen laughed, mocking Hank not to be too brutal lest these vermin run home to their mothers. Hank let out a cold snort as he ruthlessly tossed the person he had been torturing aside. Just then, Kale appeared, calmly catching the falling body, with Betty standing by and observing the situation. The onlookers whispered among themselves, surprised that a level 0 like Kale would dare to interfere with Hank's business while also feeling curious about the girl, Betty, accompanying him. Hank snapped, warning Kale to get lost immediately if he didn't want to suffer the same fate as the person in his grip. Kale remained calm, stating that he had to deal with these people before he could enter the labyrinth, while Betty suggested contacting the director to teach Leslie a lesson. Kale refused, insisting that he would do what he had been taught, provided it was the right thing to do. Kale gently asked Betty to tend to the injured before turning back to face Hank. The system displayed Kale's information, a level 0 entity with the anomaly class, with all stats hidden. Hank observed Kale, wondering if his composure stemmed from that mysterious anomaly status. Hank felt confident in his superior stats and didn't believe Kale could pose any real threat to a level 12 like him. Hank narrowed his eyes, his gaze turning icy and filled with killing intent. In a split second, Hank noticed Kale's silhouette rushing toward him at high speed. Hank's pupils constricted. Kale had suddenly closed the distance right in front of him. A powerful punch from Kale landed squarely on Hank's face, the sound of the impact ringing out sharply. The surrounding crowd was horrified, unable to believe their eyes as they witnessed Kale's terrifying speed. Kale's fist remained embedded in Hank's metallized face, emitting a thin wisp of smoke. Hank roared, gloating that his metallization ability had completely blocked Kale's surprise attack. Kale lunged forward again at lightning speed, but Hank managed to bring up his metallized arms just in time to block the attack, smirking as he mocked Kale's speed. Not missing the chance, Hank counterattacked immediately with overwhelming strength, sending Kale flying backward. Kale realized that Hank was no ordinary opponent. To suppress him, Kale decided to activate his speed-boosting ability. The system immediately analyzed the data, activating Kale's combat skills. Simultaneously, his special ability began to decrypt Hank's metallization skill. Kale landed on the ground with an icy gaze, realizing he could not underestimate Hank and needed to get serious. When Hank was in his metallized state, his defense became impenetrable. Kale realized he had to find a weakness in the areas not yet covered. With a whistling gust of wind, Kale moved beyond his limits and charged straight at Hank. Hank easily blocked Kale's punch, laughing off Kale's perceived weakness and slow speed. Kale remained calm, waiting for the exact moment Hank let his guard down out of arrogance. Suddenly, Kale erupted with power as streaks of blue lightning surged and wrapped around his body. Hank was shocked to see Kale using lightning elemental power. He wasn't fast enough to react and activate his defenses. Kale unleashed a flurry of lightning-charged punches, forcing Hank onto the defensive with terrifying speed. The relentless chain of attacks left Hank with no escape as he continuously took damage from Kale's electrified strikes. The onlookers were stunned, unable to believe that Kale could push Hank to such a desperate state. Hank gritted his teeth in a mix of fury and fear, losing control under Kale's constant onslaught. In a panic, Hank screamed for his underlings to come to his rescue, as he had no other way to defend himself. Hank decided to stake everything on one final move, resorting to his ultimate trump card to turn the tide. Burst of energy erupted as Hank strained to activate his special ability. Hank's body transformed completely, turning entirely into metal. He felt smug, believing he had successfully reached this state thanks to the pressure from Kale. Hank boasted about his defensive capabilities, convinced that in this state he had become invincible. Hank's defense stats skyrocketed. He was certain no one could pierce through that armor. Hank gloated, declaring he would spare Kale's life for helping him awaken this new skill. The onlookers were terrified by Hank's absolute defense, completely losing all faith in Kale's chances of winning. Kale remained calm, analyzing that Hank's full-body metallization state would consume a massive amount of magical energy. Hank began to doubt Kale's true capabilities, shocked by his razor-sharp tactical thinking. Kale offered a challenging smile, asserting that he would end this fight right now. Eddie observed the battle from afar, realizing that Kale was growing stronger by the second. The onlookers were bewildered, wondering if Kale could truly defeat Hank. The system notified that the decoding process of Hank's skill was complete. Kale had learned a new skill. Kale analyzed his new skill. Although it possessed the ability to ignore defense to guarantee damage, the move's movement speed was painfully slow, only 1 meter per second. Kale understood that his opponent would need to be completely exposed for this strike to finish them off. Fortunately, the Hank standing before him was nothing but a walking shield, the perfect target for Kale to test it on. Kale's gaze turned icy, igniting with a powerful surge of blue energy. He was determined to shatter Hank's so-called absolute defense at any cost. The system announced that Kale's stats had all surged simultaneously. Strength, agility, defense, and energy all increased from 250 to 260 points, bringing his total stat count to 1040. Standing amidst a brilliant blue aura, Kale prepared to unleash his finishing move. Kale activated his ultimate move, True Moon Piercer. A powerful, swirling orb of energy manifested in his hand. Kale coldly challenged Hank to dodge this lethal strike. Kale stuns everyone with his extraordinary ability. Can an unclassifiable outlier truly pierce the defenses of a level 12 metal type? A small black orb hovers in the air, radiating an unpredictable and immense power. The black orb begins to move, enveloping the surrounding space with an invisible pressure. The crowd can't help but be skeptical, seeing Kale's secret weapon as nothing more than a tiny sphere. The granite giant sneers, confident that such a pathetic attack couldn't possibly shake him or cost him his talent points. Granite Giant challenges Kale, showing complete contempt for the orb hovering before him. The arrogant Granite Giant declares that Kale will meet a miserable death if that is his final trick. But the smile on the Granite Giant's face vanishes instantly as the black orb suddenly pierces through his body. A heartbreaking scream erupts from the Granite Giant as blood splatters everywhere. Kale's attack has truly unleashed its power. Kale coldly remarks that he had warned the Granite Giant to dodge, as his aim was the arm, not the head. Kale 10. Kale orders the remaining men to quickly take the Granite Giant away. Kale 12. Kale's gaze remains icy, without a hint of hesitation after taking down the Granite Giant. Kale 13. The subordinates panic, hauling the Granite Giant away in sheer terror. Kale 14. The new Xia heroine and her teammates cannot hide their excitement after witnessing Kale's overwhelming victory. Kale 16. Another group immediately cuts in, trying to lure Kale into their team to optimize experience gain. Kale 17. They try to persuade Kale by boasting about their recovery skills, offering to support him with energy. Kale 18. Information regarding the durability of the beasts in the labyrinth makes Kale feel immensely satisfied. Kale 20. The people around him continue to relentlessly urge Kale to choose a team. Kale 21. Kale coldly replies that he will be going alone. Kale 22. Kale's blunt refusal leaves everyone stunned, labeling him as overly arrogant. Kale 23. Disappointed, they walk away, deciding to look for other teammates instead of joining a conceited person. Kale 24. The new Xia anxiously asks about Kale's energy levels when facing the rock monsters. Kale 25. The new Xia reminds him that if Kale dies, she wouldn't know how to explain it to her father. Kale 26. The new Xia warns Kale to be careful, as rock monsters may lack intelligence but always move in packs. Kale 27. Kale confirms he understands and prepares to enter the labyrinth. Kale 28. Facing reality, Kale realizes the number of monsters is far greater than he had anticipated. Kale 29. A colossal granite giant with glowing orange-yellow eyes roars inside the dungeon. Kale 30. The granite giant charges with terrifying speed, the ground shaking under his immense weight. Kale 31. Just as expected of a high-level dungeon, the stats of these monsters are truly superior. Kale 32. Kale observes calmly to see if the granite giant meets the requirements to trigger his special skill. Kale 33. Purple energy engulfs him, and a massive surge of power begins to gather around Kale. Kale 34. The piercing entity skill is officially activated, ready to fire. Kale 35. Kale launches a direct strike at the granite giant, an energy arrow tearing through space. Kale 36. The critical hit pierces through, and the granite giant collapses instantly. Kale 37, a system notification pops up. The speed of piercing entity has doubled. Kale smiles, everything is going according to plan. Kale 38, other granite giants continue to rush forward, their roars echoing throughout the cavern. Kale 39, these monsters are far too slow. Kale sees the granite giants as nothing more than target practice for his techniques. Level up notifications and speed up indicators flash in rapid succession as Kale wipes out the granite giants. Each activation costs 50 mana. Kale calculates he only has enough energy left for 2 more strikes. 3 monsters remained, 2 charging at him and 1 granite giant lurking in the shadows. Kale realizes he needs a change of strategy. Focusing all his mana, Kale decides to take down both granite giants in a single, decisive blow. A streak of purple energy shoots out, tearing through the granite giant's hardened stone armor. At that very moment, Kale pours all his strength into delivering the finishing move. With eyes burning with bloodlust, Kale pronounces a death sentence upon the granite giant. The strike explodes with power, a surging wave of mana sweeping away the remaining granite giants. The system continuously announces the defeat of the granite giants, and the speed of the piercing entity increases once again. The feeling of mana depletion is brutal. Kale gasps for air, he needs a mana recovery skill soon. Orb speed has reached 5 meters per second. From a walking pace, it is now as fast as a running human. A thunderous roar echoes out, the granite giant boss has appeared. The ground shakes violently, the power of the granite giant boss is overwhelming. The granite giant boss activates a B rank skill, Gigantification, causing its defense stat to skyrocket to 478. The monster is simply too massive. Kale immediately activates Thunderheart to boost his reflex speed. Kale charges forward to face the granite giant boss, wondering if his strike can take it down in one hit. Perhaps if I aim for the head, I can pull it off. Spotting an opening, Kale launches his decisive blow, forcing the granite giant boss to its knees. Granite giant roars with might, its massive stone body trembling violently. Kale lunges through the air, desperately searching for a weakness amidst the granite giant's relentless, storm-like attacks. Realizing he is helpless while airborne, Kale instantly activates his frozen body skill. A burst of brilliant energy erupts, marking the start of Kale's fierce counterattack. A deafening explosion rings out as the attack collides head-on with the granite giant's hard stone surface. Kale cannot help but be astonished by the granite giant's extraordinary endurance. It is just too tough. The system immediately warns of the threat from the granite giant's stone assimilation skill. Kale's health has dropped to a mere 1%. Kale smirks with confidence. So, the granite giant's massive form is just a skill that makes things much simpler. Brooker is stunned upon receiving the report and grinds his teeth as he demands clarification from the other end of the line. A trembling subordinate cowers beside Brooker, the atmosphere in the room turning intensely tense. Brooker glares at the person who just interrupted his peace with a look full of bloodlust. The subordinate hastily bows to apologize, reporting the unexpected incident occurring at the dungeon. The subordinate turns pale, revealing that someone has defeated the guards and forcibly broken into the dungeon. Brooker slams the table in anger, creating a crack. He wonders if an over-leveled intruder has appeared. The subordinate analyzes that it is unlikely, as the high-level experts are busy at the barriers, while this dungeon is only meant for rookies. Brooker sneers in contempt. He never expected the defense system to be so easily dismantled by a level 10 rookie. Brooker decides to set out personally, believing that with the monster's persistence they can still intercept the intruder. A cold glint flashes in Brooker's eyes as he orders everyone to move out immediately. The subordinate trembles as he obeys, cold sweat rolling down his forehead due to the immense pressure from Brooker. Brooker swears he won't let anyone who dared to insult him leave this area alive. Kale breathes a sigh of relief as his mana bar fully recovers. He no longer needs to dodge frantically. The stone on the granite giant's forehead glows brilliantly, signaling a change in its skill. Kale is stunned to see his skill level up automatically, and he is curious about the new changes. Kale's passive skill is enhanced, with the bonus stats doubling compared to before. Kale realizes that the ability to control the sphere's size by consuming extra energy is the key to victory. It's time to test his new power. Kale is ready to unleash the decisive blow. The system confirms that Kale has acquired a new skill. His base stats have spiked and all debuffs have been cleansed. Kale pours all his power into the massive magical sphere, exerting immense pressure down upon the granite giant standing below. Energy inside the sphere begins to resonate, emitting violent vibrations that make the surrounding space seem as if it's about to shatter. A blinding beam of light descends, piercing through the granite giant's tough stone skin and creating a terrifying explosion. Kale is exhausted with his energy depleted, yet he wears an excited smile, knowing that this move was truly reckless. Kale just wiped out the monsters in the level 15 dungeon. The system announced that the flight speed of the piercing orb skill has skyrocketed by 200%. Kale couldn't help but be amazed at the massive scale of the energy sphere he had just created. With the current speed at 7 meters per second, Kale calculated that just 2 more dungeon sweeps would bring this orb to a terrifying velocity, rivaling a speeding car. Kale looked at his stat board, finally understanding the true overpowered nature of the passive skills he had previously ignored. The cumulative flight speed bonus had reached 700%, an unthinkable number. Kale realized that the Lotus Bloom passive skill increases the range of every technique, making it the perfect tool to extend the attack distance for his orb. Kale's eyes lit up, a confident smile appearing on his face. The plan was clear, and Kale was ready for the next step. The system continued to update. The level 2 Lotus Bloom skill offered a huge advantage. Every time an enemy of level 1 or higher is defeated, the skill range increases by an additional 1%. Kale envisioned the future. If he kept upgrading, he could pull off precise sniper shots from tens of thousands of meters away. A notification from the dungeon flashed brilliantly. Kale had officially set a new record with a completion time of 3 minutes and 1 second. The crowd outside the dungeon was stunned, wondering if Kale had truly finished off all the monsters with just a single blow. Excitement filled the air as Kale had overwhelmingly shattered Tagel's old record of 3 minutes and 19 seconds. All eyes were fixed on the exit, awaiting Kale's appearance. Kale stepped out of the dungeon, but what shocked the crowd even more was that Kale's level was still 0, not a single scratch, and his clothes were barely covered in dust. Yiren watched Kale with a thoughtful gaze. She noticed that Kale hadn't taken any damage at all, and his constant breaking of Tagel's records left Yiren filled with respect. Yiren looked Kale straight in the eyes, her tone serious as she remarked on his astonishing dungeon completion speed. Kale replied nonchalantly, stating that the monsters inside couldn't even dodge and they would fall after just 2 or 3 hits. Yiren's attention turned to the butterfly fluttering beside Kale, and she began to question its origin. Yiren proudly introduced herself as a spirit master, one of the 4 greatest classes, and the butterfly was her guardian spirit. Kale gazed at the jade butterfly resting on his hand. It was the first time he had seen it from such a close distance. Its beauty left him in awe. Kale curiously asked Yiren about the 4 great classes that she and Master Ignis often mentioned, as he was still quite vague about them. Yiren was surprised that Kale didn't know this basic fact, assuming it was common knowledge everyone should grasp. With a confident smile, Yiren held up 3 fingers, asserting that Kale had actually encountered 3 of those 4 classes already. Yiren began to list them. The first class is the Elementalists, those who hold the power of metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, and lightning. They are the most common class with incredibly high base combat power. Yiren pointed out that Kale's classmate is a lightning elementalist who possesses formidable thunder powers. Not stopping there, Yiren mentioned the giant Hank, a metal elementalist with a body as hard as steel. Next are the spirit masters like Yiren, those capable of summoning unique spirits, entities that obey only their summoner. Yiren explained the bond between spirit and master, powerful entities that always accompany and fight alongside the spirit master. Yiren revealed more about the jade butterfly, her B-rank spirit, and explained that spirits are born the moment their master ascends. Yiren looked at Kale meaningfully and asked if he noticed anything unusual about the level difference between her and her spirit. Yiren pointed out that Kale's level was lower than his spirit's, and she questioned the actual time Kale had become unawakened. Struck right where it hurt, Yiren couldn't help but feel bitter at Kale's bluntness. His words hit right at the heart of her insecurities. Finally, Yiren admitted that because spirits also absorb experience points and level up independently, the level of a spirit master is often lower than that of their spirit. Kale coldly stated that the best way to take down a spirit master is to ignore the spirit and strike the master directly. Yiren shivered slightly, sensing that heavy, negative aura radiating from Kale again. Kale calmly asked about the remaining 2 classes he didn't know about. Yiren explained that the 3rd class is the most mysterious one, about which humanity knows very little. Yiren didn't hesitate to point directly at Kale, confirming that it was Kale's class, an anomaly. This class is mysterious because every anomaly possesses completely different abilities, like Kale's Blue Lotus. Yiren continued to list typical examples, from giants who could change size at will to those who could create clones. Yiren even mentioned those with bodies as flexible as rubber, capable of stretching any limb. Yiren analyzed further that while normal skills are ranked from C to S, anomalies possess a unique Z-rank skill. Yiren warned that the Z-rank skill is exactly why anomalies are feared, because once the opponent uncovers that secret, the threat is effectively neutralized. Yiren admits that's why her father once forbade her from asking about Kale's skills, even though she finds Kale even stranger than other anomalies. Kale cuts her off, demanding Yiren drop the subject since there's no one else around. Yiren remains curious about the final class she has never witnessed before. Yiren smiles enigmatically. She decides to keep it a secret to get back at Kale, who always leaves her curious but never offers an answer. Kale can only sigh, accepting Yiren's stubbornness. Yiren confirms that the 2 injured individuals have almost fully recovered and asks about Kale's next move. Kale plans to clear the dungeons a few more times, but Yiren reminds him that dungeons have very long cooldown periods. Kale suddenly realizes why others want to monopolize them, so he decides to focus on the Lotus Bloom skill instead of accumulating passives. Kale asks Yiren if there is any dungeon containing a large number of monsters. Yiren flashes a mischievous smile. She already understands Kale's intentions. Yiren mentions the Locust Dynasty dungeon, a place with such a staggering number of monsters that most transcendents avoid it. Yiren warns that it would be a nightmare without area of effect skills, but Kale resolutely chooses that location. Yiren is still concerned about the dungeon's difficulty, but Kale asserts that he is ready. Those around are stunned to hear Kale intends to challenge the Locust Dynasty. They decide to leave and report to their superiors about the level 0 who injured the others. Abset's face darkens upon receiving the news. Abset roars in fury because there is no one left to stop Kale. Abset's subordinate trembles as he reports that Kale cleared the Fury Rock execution area in less than half an hour. Abset cannot believe his ears and begins to wonder if Kale is mocking him. Abset orders his men to summon the Bloodhound to track the lingering traces of Kale's mana. Abset gritted his teeth, ordering them to keep Kale alive so that he could torture him personally. The blonde man cannot believe that Abset possesses such a terrifying assassin. He blames himself for taking on this deadly job. In a panic, the blonde man silently thanks his Earth attribute skill for helping him escape by a hair's breadth. The blonde man holds his breath, hoping he is shaken off Euro. But the silence lasts only a few seconds before a frigid killing intent strikes from Euro's direction. A roar tears through the space. Euro's spirit beast has found its target. The spirit beast lunges with terrifying speed, its sharp jaws crushing all hope of the blonde man's survival. Beast pins the blonde man against the wall while Euro slowly approaches. The blonde man trembles, desperately asking how Euro managed to hunt him down. The blonde man's eyes go blank with fear. Death is closer than ever. Euro nonchalantly replies that her beast possesses an extremely keen sense of smell. By activating the pursuit skill, her beast can sniff out mana traces left by the blonde man from 3 days ago. The blonde man wails in despair, begging Euro to spare his life. But Euro just sneers. He cannot let Abset down, and besides, the beast is too hungry. Yiren's eyes glint with cruelty. Dinner is served. Euro's spirit beast lets out a fierce roar. The system announces that the spirit beast has successfully leveled up after finishing off the blonde man. Stat board appears, confirming the formidable power of the B-rank spirit beast owned by Euro. His phone rings. Euro coldly declares to Abset that the job is done. Euro frowns upon hearing the news that his accomplice has been incapacitated. Without hesitation, Euro urges the beast to continue the hunt. The fresh prey is still waiting. Kale arrives at a land known as the Locust Tide. He stands silently before a massive labyrinth where a peculiar structure sits desolate amidst a field of golden wheat. Kale realizes the name is no exaggeration. Swarms of locusts are crawling all over the wheat field, creating a truly terrifying sight. Together with the heroine, Kale observes the terrain. The heroine explains that assessing monster types based on their environment is a vital survival skill for transcendence. The heroine sighs upon noticing the unusual desolation. This place has long been classified as dangerous and will inevitably be wiped out sooner or later. Kale can't help but wonder why everyone avoids this place like the plague despite it only being a level 13 difficulty. The heroine explains that the monsters here are so vicious that no one dares to take the risk. Unlike other areas, the monsters here are numerous and brutally aggressive, ready to devour anyone foolish enough to wander in. With just a single mistake, an intruder would be swarmed by tens of thousands of locusts and devoured alive in the blink of an eye. The fate of an unlucky soul would be nothing more than a cold, dried-up skeleton left in the middle of the desolate field. Instead of fear, Kale shows excitement upon learning about the massive number of monsters. The heroine looks at Kale as if he were a madman seeking his own death. Kale responds calmly. Despite his confidence, he is rational enough not to let himself be eaten by bugs for nothing. Heroine watches Kale's back as he enters the teleportation gate, wondering if that confidence is enough for him to survive. The heroine sighs, figuring she has fulfilled her duty to warn him, and decides to leave him to his own devices. Suddenly, the heroine is struck with horror as she realizes she forgot to mention the most important thing. If the boss isn't defeated, the locusts will respawn infinitely. A look of extreme anxiety flashes across the heroine's eyes. She must find a way to warn Kale immediately. When the heroine turns back, a stranger with glowing red eyes stands blocking her path, causing her to freeze in her tracks. The stranger flashes a sinister smile and asks the heroine about a certain someone. Meanwhile, Kale stands in the middle of the desolate field where everything seems to have been completely ravaged. Kale claps his hands and calls out to the monsters in a challenging tone, declaring that their exterminator has arrived. A buzzing sound fills the air. A tattered scarecrow standing in the middle of the field seems to respond to the challenge. The system displays the info board for the locusts. Despite their low level, they are the perfect targets for Kale to activate his ultimate move, Lotus Explosion. Looking at the swarm of locusts covering the sky, Kale cannot help but be amazed by their sheer numbers. But for Kale, the more the better. He focuses his mana, and a radiant lotus flower manifests in his hand. The fact that the monsters are clustered together is the perfect opportunity for Kale to wipe them all out in a single blow. Kale lets out a decisive shout and unleashes his skill into the middle of the surrounding locust swarm. Lotus Explosion is activated. A blinding blast tears through the space, engulfing all the targets. System notifications pop up continuously. Eliminating the locusts allows the range of Kale's skill to increase with every kill. Amidst the swirling dust, Kale stands there, feeling the power of his skill gradually expanding. The stats board clearly shows that the range of Lotus Explosion has reached a 110% cumulative bonus. Kale looks on with satisfaction as the explosion radius has expanded to 10.5 meters. An incredible start indeed. Kale calculates calmly. With only 10% of his energy, he can perfectly control these monsters using Lotus Explosion. Kale is confident that with his remaining energy and recovery capabilities, he can cast it 10 more times, enough to push the bonus up to 1000%. Then, a giant question mark appears in Kale's mind. Why hasn't the challenge success notification appeared yet? Something is not right. Kale freezes. He realizes the monsters haven't been completely wiped out yet. There are still many enemies hiding. Immediately, a piercing buzz sounds. From beneath the ground, swarms of insectoid monsters emerge, surrounding Kale in a dense magical circle. Kale instantly understands. Mother's command is the boss's skill. Kale blames himself for naively assuming this labyrinth had no boss. Despite the disadvantageous situation, Kale remains calm. The good news is that the passive of Lotus Explosion allows Kale to increase his attack range. But the bad news is that Kale still cannot pinpoint the boss's location. Kale channels energy into his hand. A brilliant fire lotus begins to form, emitting a blinding light. No need to search anymore. Kale decides to slaughter all these insects until the boss is forced to show itself. The fire lotus explodes violently. A shockwave rocks the area, wiping out a massive amount of monsters within its range. Kale stares in astonishment as his skill range expands to 16 meters. He realizes that the destructive power of Lotus Explosion is directly proportional to the amount of mana consumed. Over 110 monsters were obliterated in the blink of an eye. Kale wonders if this is enough to force the boss to appear. A rustling sound echoes from deep underground. New cocoons begin to crack, spawning swarms of insectoid monsters. Another wave of monsters. Kale observes as the decryption progress for Mother's command reaches 27%. Kale checks his mana. He still has enough to cast Lotus Explosion 9 more times. Kale growls, his hands ablaze with magical fire. He declares that he will wipe out these insects no matter how many times they spawn. Kale clenches his fist, the flames roaring intensely. He is determined to eradicate every single one of these monsters. Massive explosion sweeps across the battlefield once again. The system continuously updates, showing the skill range increasing after each wave of kills. Deafening explosions ring out in succession. Kale unleashes a barrage of attacks, triggering Lotus Explosion repeatedly and turning the entire area into a sea of fire. After 9 waves of devastation, Kale begins to tire. He only has enough mana left for one final strike, but to his shock, the insects show no signs of stopping. A pitch-black swarm of insects descends. Their numbers remain as dense as if they had never been touched. The boss is still nowhere to be seen. Kale wonders if he should leave the dungeon and return once the decryption is complete. But then, Kale discards the thought. That is the way of thinking for ordinary people, not for Kale. With eyes burning with intensity, Kale asserts that no matter how many monsters remain, he will clear them all out. Yet another massive lotus of fire blooms. The explosion tears through the ground, incinerating everything in sight. Kale drops to his knees, drenched in sweat. He reassures himself that the last blow should have been enough to resolve the problem. Kale realizes a terrifying pattern. Apart from the first wave, the rest of the monsters are all level 1, tiny and newly hatched. Kale is horrified to face the truth. The boss's ability is infinite reproduction. System displays information on the level 13 Poison Locust King, featuring mass egg production and remote control skills. Kale understands that unless he eliminates the source, every effort is meaningless, even as his energy is nearly depleted. The boss's skill decryption progress hits 100% and a surge of green energy erupts. Mana Radar allows Kale to detect energy flows within a 100-meter radius, and thanks to the passive effect of the Lotus Explosion skill, this range is amplified to 1,100 meters, along with mana regeneration. With the perfect counter provided by his new skill, Kale smiles confidently, considering whether to spare the boss for a while to farm a few more waves of monsters. Thinking of the worried new Xia, Kale decides to clear the dungeon now. Kale's stats instantly gain plus 10 points and all negative status effects are removed. Kale immediately activates Mana Radar to lock onto the boss's location. An energy wave radiates from Kale, sweeping through the entire dungeon space. Kale stands on high, looking down at the Poison Locust King lurking below. Kale's eyes light up. He has found his target. Kale reaches out, gathering energy at his fingertips, ready to deliver the decisive blow. The buzzing sound intensifies, and the very air seems to tremble. The boss attempts to use dark magic to block Kale's attack. Kale scoffs. Thanks to the Lotus Explosion passive, his attack range far exceeds expectations. The energy sphere streaks across a distance of 120 meters, slamming into the ground. The Poison Locust King panics, desperately trying to take flight to dodge. Kale encases himself in crystal armor, surrounded by lightning, and lunges forward like an arrow. The boss struggles to cope amidst Kale's barrage of attacks. Kale growls, declaring an end to the battle. A critical blow lands squarely on the boss, shattering its hardened shell to pieces. Once the boss is defeated, the monsters lose all control and descend into a frenzied state. Kale holds nothing back. He channels flames into his crystal-plated arm, ready to finish off his enemies. A massive explosion erupts, incinerating everything within sight. The Lotus Bloom passive skill surges to 1210%, the blast radius reaches 65.5 meters, and the attack range extends to 131 meters. Kale is satisfied with the results. He gathers the loot, confident that he will perform even better next time. The system announces that Kale has just set a new record with a time of 17 minutes and 7 seconds. He hurries away, worried about the Nuxia, female hero. Kale knows full well that despite her concern, the Nuxia will surely pretend to be cold when they meet again. The Nuxia stands there, her eyes revealing clear concern even as she tries to maintain a calm demeanor. Kale appears amidst a streak of blue radiance, flashing a confident smile to reassure his comrade that he has returned. But immediately after, the glowing red, murderous eyes of a stranger suddenly appear, tearing through the silent atmosphere. The stranger is tightening his grip on the Nuxia's throat, his blood-red eyes locked onto Kale with a dangerous challenge. Chase sneered triumphantly as he held Betty hostage, arrogantly mocking her loyalty even while she faced mortal danger. Kale responded with a cold, piercing gaze, declaring that he would make Chase pay dearly for what he had done to Betty. Chase remained unfazed, laughing with utter contempt. He looked down on Kale, dismissing him as nothing more than a rookie who didn't know his place. Before Chase could even react, Kale unleashed terrifying speed, lunging forward like a bolt of lightning. Shock was etched across Chase's face as he struggled to believe the sheer, superhuman speed Kale had just displayed. Chase screamed in panic as he realized Kale's true target was his spirit beast Baru. Kale delivered a direct punch toward Baru, while the system instantly scanned and alerted him to the threat posed by the creature. As he landed the blow, Kale realized his opponent was a master soul manipulator the moment Baru appeared. Chase began to break into a cold sweat, realizing the dire situation as Kale displayed such fierce, unwavering resolve. Anxious, Chase wondered if Kale was the same person who had taken down his subordinates earlier. Despite his fear, Chase tried to keep his cool, tightening his grip on Betty to use her as a human shield. Seeing Betty threatened, Kale lunged forward in a rage, his hands clamping tightly around Baru's neck. Baru let out a fierce roar, struggling desperately to break free from Kale's iron grip. Chase felt confident that Baru's bite was strong enough to tear anything apart, Kale's arm included. Chase's confidence vanished in an instant, replaced by a look of utter horror. A dry, sickening crack of bone echoed through the air. Kale had completely overwhelmed Baru and crushed its attack. Baru shrieked in agony as Kale finished it off, sending black blood splattering everywhere. Kale calmly checked his system interface, confirming that the decoding process for Baru was nearing completion. After defeating the creature, Kale tossed Baru's carcass aside like a piece of trash. Chase stared at Kale, contemptuously thinking the newcomer was naive enough to believe the spirit beast was truly dead. Baru's corpse began to twitch, signaling its resurrection fueled by Chase's skill. Baru suddenly lunged to its feet, charging straight toward Kale with lethal intent. Kale immediately activated his mana radar skill to track every movement in the vicinity. As the radar emitted rapid pings, Kale took full control of the situation. Kale easily dodged Baru's pounce. His mana radar skill was proving to be incredibly effective. The decoding progress skyrocketed, and Kale was closing in on completely neutralizing Baru. Kale focused intensely, careful not to reveal the special skills that would put Chase on high alert. The decoding process hit 95%. The end of the battle was imminent. Chase trembled as he realized the massive power gap, rendering all of his sneak attacks utterly futile. Chase tightened his grip on Betty's neck, issuing a cruel threat to force her into submission. Tension reached its breaking point as Chase's fingers refused to release their hold on Betty. Kale calmly analyzed the field, searching for a way to neutralize the threat without triggering the dangerous magic trap. The system announced a successful decoding, and Kale officially acquired a new ultimate move, Soul Absorber. Kale was surprised to find the system bypassing the danger stage, causing all his stats to skyrocket simultaneously. Though he lost his self-regeneration ability, Kale considered it a small price to pay for his current peak state. With his newfound power, Kale felt confident that he could claim anyone's soul with just a single touch. Magic light flared on Kale's hand. He was ready to make his decisive move. Without hesitation, Kale charged forward, determined to possess that shadow entity for himself. A powerful impact rocked the area, and the shadow soul was instantly subdued under Kale's overwhelming power. In that fleeting moment, Kale had seized full control over the entity that Chase had worked so hard to cultivate. Kale delivers a thunderous kick, shattering Chase's final line of defense. Chase is left in shock as his pet is snatched away, screaming in frantic helplessness. Refusing to give up his sinister ambition, Chase continues to use Betty as a human shield to threaten Kale. Despite being in agonizing pain, Betty still tries to urge Kale not to worry about her. Betty's breathing grows faint, the situation is becoming critically dire. Kale raises both hands high, feigning surrender to find an opening to rescue Betty. Chase laughs triumphantly, convinced that Kale's submission is proof of his cowardice. Kale stares coldly at Chase, for the first time questioning the identity of his aggressor. Arrogantly, Chase introduces himself as someone working for young Master Leslie. Hearing the name Leslie, Kale's gaze turns icy. He already has a plan for that young master. Unaware of his fate, Chase continues to spew threats, ordering the shadow entity to attack Kale. Pointing at Kale, Chase screams his command for the shadow entity to strike. Kale eyes the shadow entity with an aura of authority. It's time to test its loyalty. Shadows engulf the area as the demonic beast turns around, redirecting its fury toward Chase. Chase is horrified to see his own creation turn against him, sharp claws looming inches away. While Chase faces disaster, Kale swiftly rescues Betty from the perilous trap. Chase shrieks in agony and confusion, unable to believe that his own pet has become his betrayer. Kale strokes the shadow entity with satisfaction, praising it for a job well done. Holding Betty in his arms, Kale swears to make Chase pay 100-fold for what he has done. Panic-stricken, Chase tries to justify himself, blaming others and begging Kale for a chance to team up and eliminate their common enemy. With eyes burning with murderous intent, Kale coldly responds to Chase's offer. Chase smiles smugly, foolishly believing he has found a loophole to survive. Chase roars with malice and lunges forward, launching an attack straight at Kale. Kale remains unshaken, declaring that he is more than capable of finishing off the enemy himself without any help. Still holding Betty, Kale commands Baru to carry out a fitting punishment upon Chase. Kale's cold verdict leaves Chase shattered, his face twisted in absolute terror. Chase continues to plead, desperately begging for one last chance, claiming it was all just a misunderstanding. Baru bares his fangs and lunges, closing in on Chase with the instinct of a true predator. Chase screams in desperation, frantically reminding Baru of his status as his master to sway him. Baru lets out a mighty roar, confirming he sensed Chase's presence the moment he left the dungeon. Kale stands tall, his cold gaze fixed on Chase as he faces Baru. Kale speaks up, demanding that the person who has been hiding and watching him all this time reveal themselves. In the middle of the desolate field, a silhouette slowly steps out into the light from a distant building. Talent twitched her lips slightly, realizing she had been spotted the moment she went into hiding. Kale was carrying Liths in his arms, his icy gaze fixed on the spot where Talent had just appeared. Panicked, Talent hurriedly clarified that she wasn't an enemy and desperately pleaded to be heard. Kale responded coldly, stating that he was very busy and had no need for any explanations if Talent wasn't an enemy. Kale ordered Talent to follow him as soon as he finished his business. Talent was astonished to see the fierce beast obeying Kale, silently thinking that perhaps he was the one who could help her. Talent introduced herself, unable to hide her admiration as she asked if Kale was the one who had defeated the enemy. Talent continuously offered enticing rewards, from gold and karma stones to high-grade weapons, in exchange for Kale's help. Talent watched Kale's retreating figure in confusion, wondering why the tempting benefits her father had taught her about had no effect on him. A blacksmith swung his hammer, contemplating that negotiation is an art and sometimes the value of a cup of water is worth more than a treasure trove. Handing a blade to an avenger, or medicine to the wounded, that is the true reward. Talent suddenly realized, finally understanding why her previous offers hadn't worked on Kale. Talent analyzed that Kale was traveling on foot and couldn't take Liths far, warning that she might not survive. Talent held up a recovery item, confidently asserting that she had the ability to save Lith's life. Talent persistently tried to convince Kale that she could absolutely save the dying Liths. Kale turned his head, his eyes filled with skepticism as he listened to Talent's promise. Talent insisted that although she couldn't provide instant recovery, her item would certainly keep Liths alive. Talent explained that the bandages were a rare-grade karma tool crafted by her father using special materials specifically to save lives. Talent noticed Kale's unfamiliarity with the concept of karma tools, guessing that he had only just become a transcendent. Talent explained that ordinary weapons could not harm beasts or transcendents, which was why guns and ammunition were useless. Talent revealed that among the 4 grade classes, only blacksmiths had the ability to craft karma tools from quartz fragments or beast remains. Karma tools are categorized into 4 levels based on the blacksmith's skill and the materials used. Talent explained that standard-grade karma tools could damage beasts but were essentially the same as regular items. Talent continued talking about epic-grade karma tools, weapons that didn't just boost stats but also possessed unique special effects. Talent illustrated with the effect of an epic-grade sword, which could increase the blade's temperature and reduce the enemy's recovery rate. Talent excitedly described the unique grade karma tool, the ultimate goal of every blacksmith possessing godlike power. Talent affirmed that despite their low combatability, blacksmiths were rare individuals highly valued across all 5 continents. Talent proudly declared that her father was no ordinary blacksmith, as unique grade items were extremely scarce. Talent boasted that her father had created 3 of the 10 existing unique grade items, preparing to reveal his illustrious identity. The king of blacksmiths in the north, a living legend with incomparable weapon masterpieces. Kale was startled when Talent suddenly asked him something, cutting off his train of thought amidst the wheat field. Talent couldn't hide her annoyance as Kale was absorbed in studying the crossbow that had been used to ambush him. Talent was surprised by Kale's calm attitude, which was completely opposite to those who always tried to curry favor with her because of her status. Talent confirmed it was a rare karma item, while Kale was only concerned with how to reload it. The hunter's crossbow stats appeared. Talent explained that this karma item had the ability to hide itself when not in use. Kale nodded in satisfaction, not forgetting to thank Talent for healing lifts. Talent recalled the event where Kale openly confronted an opponent, an action that made her respect his courage. When Kale inquired, Talent confirmed that both of their goals were now aligned in the same direction. Talent proposed an alliance with Kale to participate in the Salvation Alliance qualifiers, a brutal tournament Kale had been preparing for a long time. Talent explained that the qualifiers in the northern region would take place right here in District North 4. Talent reveals that another rival is under immense pressure from their family, forcing them to secure a spot in the main event at all costs. Kale realizes his rival is monopolizing every dungeon to farm XP, and he questions why Talent chose him. Talent has absolute faith in Kale's strength, but Kale remains skeptical about Talent's sense of urgency. Talent reveals her impatience, a hidden burden behind her determination to pass this qualifier. Talent reminisces about her great father, who spent his entire life forging the most perfect karma items. Talent once dreamed of becoming a transcendentalist, holding a weapon crafted by her own father's hands. But when Talent finally became a transcendentalist, her father flatly refused her, claiming she wasn't worthy of wielding his weapons. Talent's persistence finally forced her father to concede. He promised that if Talent passed the qualifiers, she would have the right to choose any treasure from his vault. That is why Talent is betting everything on this tournament, her eyes burning with determination. Kale still wonders why Talent didn't seek out stronger allies instead of choosing a level 0 rookie like him. Talent recounts her father's strict warning: she must win on her own without relying on his reputation. Kale can only remark that Talent's father is truly an incredibly strict man. Talent explains that most potential transcendentalists have already been recruited by their rivals. The remaining ones are either too reclusive or already part of a team, leaving Talent at a dead end. But the news of Kale defeating the rival's henchmen ignited hope for Talent. Kale agrees to cooperate, but he prioritizes taking Liths to the hospital to rest first. Talent starts talking incessantly, making Kale feel annoyed while he carries Liths in his arms. Talent excitedly suggests the team name AA, while Kale remains worried about Lith's condition and his old friends. Thous suddenly sneezes loudly, shattering the quiet atmosphere. Liths looks at Thous suspiciously, teasing him about whether he has caught a cold. Thous scratches his head, silently wondering if Kale is thinking of him. Lith's gaze turns somber, and she sighs, mentioning how long it has been since she last saw Kale after the battle at school. Worry is etched onto Lith's face. She wonders how Kale's life has been, as this is the longest they have been apart. Thous laughs, not forgetting to mock Liths for her excessive worrying. He questions why she was the one who disappeared right after Kale defeated the beast at school. Hitting a nerve, Liths says nothing and immediately launches a water magic attack at Thous. Thous dodges hurriedly, grumbling about her sudden attack, while Liths coldly retorts that it was just a sparring session requested by their teacher. The teacher appears, sternly reminding Liths and Thous that the Salvation League qualifiers start in just 2 days, yet they still have the mindset to play around. Liths shows excitement. She declares she is sick of sparring with Thous and is eager to face other transcendentalists. Thous isn't one to be outdone. He excitedly discusses wanting to visit the Northern District 4, rumored to be an incredibly wealthy city. A mysterious hand carefully places power stones into a briefcase, preparing for dark plans. Mastermind behind these stones wonders about the absence of their subordinate, who has never been late. This person broods, gripping the stone tightly, wondering if their subordinate has run into any trouble. Losing patience, they grit their teeth, calling their underlings trash, and crush the stone to absorb the XP. The subordinate asks if they need to send someone to find their teammates, but the mastermind brushes it off, insisting that participating in the Salvation League qualifiers is the top priority. They continue to query about the mission's progress. The subordinate reports having gathered 887 candidates from level 5 and above ready to cooperate. The mastermind nods in satisfaction, stating that they only trust their most loyal servant with such important work. The subordinate offers up the final power stone, which the mastermind immediately absorbs to level up. Power erupts, and they declare that this is enough to crush the weaklings in the upcoming qualifiers. Kale stands motionless in the space filled with magical energy, his expression deep in thought. Kale bows his head, his voice heavy with remorse as he admits to Master Ignis that he failed to protect Betty. Master Ignis remains cold, bluntly asking Kale if he can handle the consequences himself or if he wants him to step in. Kale raises his head, his eyes firm as he replies to Master Ignis that he will shoulder everything on his own. Master Ignis nods in agreement, ordering Kale to return to the infirmary and give a detailed report of what happened. Aiden is shocked to realize that Master Ignis is the master behind Kale, and he cannot hide his admiration for the mysterious senior. Kale recounts the entire incident to everyone in the infirmary, confirming that he and Abelia will participate in the Savior Alliance qualifiers. Betty smiles, reassuring everyone that thanks to the treatment from the Jade Butterfly and Abelia's abilities, she has fully recovered. Master Ignis speaks up unexpectedly, recognizing the bandage on Betty's head as a treasure crafted by Aiden himself, and suspects that Kale is Aiden's son. Aiden is stunned by Master Ignis's assertion, telling himself he must not tarnish the reputation of his father, the legendary blacksmith of the North. Aiden confidently asserts his background to everyone, declaring that he is indeed the son of the legendary blacksmith. Witnessing the scene, everyone in the room freezes. Kale and Betty cannot hide their astonishment at Aiden's sudden plot twist. Aiden covers his face in embarrassment, realizing he completely misunderstood the situation. Master Ignis skillfully changes the subject, promising to take Kale to meet Aiden's father after the qualifiers end. He instructs Kale and Aiden to prepare thoroughly, as he and Betty will also be present at the arena tomorrow. Kale and Aiden reply in unison with determination, ready for the upcoming challenge under Master Ignis's guidance. Master Ignis watches Betty silently, a sense of worry for Kale stirring within him. He reveals that Kale always tends towards self-destruction when facing monsters, a consequence of childhood trauma. Only when an important companion is by his side can Kale restrain that impulse. Master Ignis seriously urges Betty to always stay by Kale's side and become his reliable companion. Betty contemplates the responsibility Master Ignis just entrusted to her. Can she become the person Kale wants to protect? Master Ignis warns that the attack at the school was no coincidence but a plot orchestrated by the monsters. He looks out the window, where darkness is gradually enveloping the future of humanity. But deep down, Master Ignis believes that Kale is the only ray of light capable of turning the tide. Tomorrow, at the North 4 Regional Qualifier Arena, everything begins. The North 4 Regional Qualifier Arena is becoming more crowded than ever, far exceeding all initial estimates. News of Master Ignis's appearance has caused the number of registered contestants to skyrocket from 3,000 to nearly 5,000. Leslie cannot hide his irritation at the chaotic crowd, but his subordinate beside him calmly insists that the numerical advantage still belongs to them. In another corner, Tejal and Abelia are observing the situation, wondering if Master Ignis's presence means Kale will also appear. The competition supervisor appears, requiring all contestants to listen to the rules before the qualifiers officially begin. The competition is divided into two zones, the inner zone and the outer zone. Currently, everyone is standing at the outer edges of the north, south, east, and west sectors. The arena map is revealed. Kale, Abelia, Leslie, and thousands of other contestants are in the outer zone, surrounding the mysterious inner zone. The rules are brutal. Whoever reaches the inner zone first will be recorded. Only the first 500 will advance, the rest will be disqualified immediately. Tejal comments on the versatility of these wristbands, while Abelia cannot help but shiver at the cruelty of this year's qualifiers. Aiden suddenly points ahead, signaling Kale to pay attention to something happening. Aiden and Kale's gazes are fixed on a single target in the distance. It is Leslie, who is ordering his subordinates to be ready to use their skills to eliminate anyone who dares to surpass him. Aiden identifies the people around Leslie as those who have been bribed by him and suggests a plan to ambush them after they safely enter the inner zone. Suddenly, Aiden's expression shifts completely, his eyes filled with absolute shock. Kale quietly marches straight toward Leslie's group, leaving Aiden in total disbelief. Leslie's henchmen quickly spot Kale and warn each other about the stranger who isn't wearing the red ribbon. The first phase of the qualifiers officially begins. The competition supervisor looks down at the arena, satisfied with the turnout of participants. However, the supervisor remains strict. A large crowd means nothing if it lacks quality. Master Ignis chats with a mysterious man, reminiscing about the days when contestants above level 15 were extremely rare. The mysterious man mocks Master Ignis for exaggerating, claiming only 2 people managed to break the level 15 threshold that year. They mentioned Tajal and Fred, the rare individuals who possessed overwhelming power from the very start. The mysterious man insists that only rookies like Tajal are worthy of his attention. Master Ignis then brings up a student from a high school in North Realm who took down a level 8 monster immediately after awakening. Master Ignis's dignified aura makes the other man doubt the authenticity of the story. Master Ignis responds with nothing more than a brief, firm confirmation. The mysterious man wonders if that rookie is participating in today's qualifiers and what makes him so special. Master Ignis gazes at the display device, wondering who truly holds the most potential. Information about Timu appears. He is merely a metal controller with a basic T2 talent level. Next is Yuna. Despite being level 11, she is only a water-type controller geared towards support. Names keep scrolling by, yet no one has made an impression as powerful as the rumors suggested. The system displays information about a wood element master with an impressive level, making everyone wary. The supervisor is stunned while checking the list, as even that person isn't the most formidable name on the roster. All eyes turn to Kale, who is at level 0. Newcomers usually only show up to gawk, only to be quickly eliminated in disgrace. Leslie cannot hide his sarcasm, laughing at Kale's appearance in the qualifiers. Kale calmly activates the weapon in his hand, exuding a dangerous aura. Recognizing Kale's weapon, Leslie's expression shifts. His arrogant smirk is replaced by panic. Kale stares directly at Leslie, his cold gaze declaring that he is the very target Kale has been hunting. Leslie brushes off his fear, insisting that Kale is just trash-tier level 0 fodder sent to disrupt his competition. Not bothering to lift a finger himself, Leslie orders his lackeys to finish Kale off immediately. Power explodes and the ground trembles violently under Kale's feet as his opponents charge. Kale stands his ground, coldly facing the group of opponents surrounding him. A murderous intent fills the space. The lopsided battle has officially begun. Witnessing this, the supervisor cannot help but worry for Kale's fate against 5 powerful opponents. Tajal also feels uneasy. No matter how strong Kale might be, taking on 4 high-level fighters at once seems impossible. Tajal hesitates, wondering if he should use the karma treasure to intervene. Leslie feels triumphant, believing he has just landed an easy win. Unexpectedly, Kale launches a lightning-fast counterattack, leaving his opponents no time to react. Kale coldly orders his opponents to get lost. The pressure he exerts makes them tremble. Leslie's confidence completely vanishes, replaced by sheer terror. Leslie laughs manically, trying to mask his fear with his usual arrogance. Witnessing Kale's prowess, the supervisor begins to feel admiration and prepares to offer assistance. Leslie still refuses to give up, spewing vicious threats at Kale. Kale says nothing more. He closes the distance and lands a direct punch to Leslie's face. The horrific impact sends blood splattering everywhere as Leslie collapses on the spot. Kale stands tall over his defeated foe, once again asserting his prohibition. The disparity in their levels was no match for Kale, leaving those around him stunned by his true power. Kita roared in sheer astonishment as he saw Kale reaching level. He tried to reassure Abset that it was merely a sneak attack and there was no need to panic. Before Kale could even recover, Kita immediately activated Full Power Annihilation Cannon, a B-rank skill with terrifying heat. A deafening explosion shook the entire arena. Talent, standing beside Kale, was left in shock as he hadn't managed to use any support items in time. Kita unleashed the finishing blow without a shred of hesitation. He mocked Kale, claiming that players dying in the qualifiers was a common occurrence and that it was all due to Kale's arrogance. Suddenly, the flames dispersed. Kita and Abset were stunned, realizing that something was amiss within the smoke. At the epicenter of the blast, Kale stood firm, encased in a mysterious black ice barrier that completely neutralized the fire. Talon couldn't hide his amazement at Kale's absolute defense. He gasped in awe at this display of power. Kale calmly ordered Talon to fall back. His eyes gleamed with the confidence of someone who had complete control over the battlefield. The system notified Kale used Frozen Body to block the B-rank attack. Defense stats increased by % and total strength stats have been upgraded. Kale calculated the increase in his stats. He began to deduce the passive activation mechanism of the skill if the opponent were to repeat the same move. Kita was in a state of absolute panic. He couldn't believe Kale was still unharmed and began to wonder if the black ice armor was a unique skill. Kale coldly challenged Kita. He demanded that Kita use that move once more, asserting that he wouldn't even flinch. Kale's provocative gesture was like pouring fuel on the fire, making Kita even more furious. Feeling insulted, Kita accepted the challenge and demanded that Kale keep his promise not to dodge. Kita funneled all his mana into the Superspeed Annihilation Cannon, determined to burn Kale to ashes. Kale stood still like a statue, ignoring the storm of fire sweeping towards him. Kale identified the pattern of the attack. Although the scale was larger, the nature of Kita's skill remained unchanged. Abset was horrified by the power of the move, concluding that the strength of Kita's had reached level 8. Kita was running out of mana. He was confident that this final blow would surely finish Kale off. Kita was suddenly stunned as he saw the result before him. Kita was left speechless, seeing his strongest attack rendered completely ineffective against Kale. Kale confirmed his hypothesis was correct. His passive skill didn't reactivate, and it was time for Kale to counterattack. Kale declared the end of the match. He advanced towards Kita with overwhelming presence. Kita was in total panic, unable to believe that Kale could block his ultimate move so easily. Kita collapsed to the ground. Kale had seen through his weaknesses from the very first seconds. In a fit of desperation, Kita unleashed 100 fire bullets V-rank, hoping for one last shred of hope. Kale calmly faced the rain of fire. The system confirmed that Kale's frozen body had been activated. A series of consecutive explosions tore through the arena's space. Flames roared violently, consuming everything in sight. Kita growled in frustration, still unable to believe that Kale possessed such a formidable skill. He secretly calculated that if Kale ran out of mana to maintain the black ice armor, victory would surely be his. But at that very moment, a terrifying speed approached. Kita was shocked, his eyes widening as he realized Kale was standing right in front of him before he even knew it. Kale calmly retorted that the fireballs Kita had thrown couldn't trouble him at all. They were only strong enough to trigger the frozen body passive exactly once. Although admitting Kale had superior speed, Kita stubbornly believed that his own physical strength would hold the advantage. Not giving Kale a chance to react, Kita put all his might into a punch, hoping to end it all right there. Kale looked straight into Kita's eyes with a cold, contemptuous gaze. He whispered a mocking remark, leaving Kita stunned by his opponent's extreme confidence. Kale didn't even bother to dodge. He launched a lightning-fast counterattack, delivering a thunderous kick that sent Kita flying backward. The system notified that Kale's defense stat had increased too. Blocking the B-rank attack granted him additional stacks, proving that base stats were the most important factor. While Kita was already defeated, Kale kept a cool head. He turned his gaze toward the two lightning-type users lurking nearby, marking them as the perfect targets to stack his Heart of Lightning passive. Witnessing their teammate being defeated so easily, the remaining ones panicked. They realized Kale's status board was completely fake and began to flee in desperation. Kale wouldn't let anyone escape his sight. His eyes blazed with killing intent, cutting off their retreat. Cornered, the remaining enemies decide to fight to the death. They channel all their magical power, unleashing overwhelming electrical currents around Kale. Kale activates Silver Snake, a powerful C-rank ultimate skill, ready to crush their final resistance. A blinding light consumes the space, and a deafening explosion signals that Kale has unleashed his finishing blow. The system continuously updates. Kale's agility stat skyrockets after successfully absorbing the lightning attribute attacks. His total stats have now reached. Kale silently ponders the identity of his enemies, but in his mind, everything remains under control. Witnessing Kale effortlessly take down 5 higher-ranked opponents, the survivors cannot help but tremble in fear at such monstrous power. Kale calmly explains the mechanism of his lightning heart. It functions similarly to frozen body, requiring a diverse range of attacks from the opponent to trigger. Talent steps forward, looks at the wreckage around them, and casually remarks that all of them have been knocked unconscious. Talent cannot hide his astonishment. He had prepared for a fierce battle, but never expected Kale to finish them all in just a few moves. Curiosity reaching its peak, Talent cannot resist asking directly about the true nature of Kale's power and his real identity. Kale smirks slightly and responds with a cryptic question that leaves Talent frozen in his tracks. Talent laughs triumphantly, proudly declaring the name of the future strongest duo in the North Region, AA. Kale immediately cuts off Talent's excitement, reminding him that the most important goal right now is to pursue Leslie. Kita, despite being on the receiving end of the beatdown, still finds the time to sarcastically mock the cheesy AA name Talent just coined. From afar, Abset observes the battle, convinced that with such a massive clash, Kale must have been crushed to pieces. But Abset's smile suddenly fades. He senses that something is going terribly wrong. Abset recognizes that the hunter's crossbow belongs to Chase. He tells himself he must investigate the truth of the matter once the qualifiers are over. Abset contemplates the fact that few in the North region are capable of taking down Chase so quickly, except for the saviors. Kale appears, unshaken, asserting that he is not some mediocre fire attribute user, but a warrior specialized in speed. A blast of violet energy erupts violently, and a roar echoes through the air amidst the shockwaves. Kale braces himself against the crushing pressure, his face tense, stained with sweat and dust. A wind-tearing attack lunges forward, leaving a deadly trail of purple light right behind Kale. Abset stands there, looking down arrogantly, not forgetting to mock Kale for daring to overstep his bounds. Abset snaps at his surrounding subordinates, smugly claiming that he needs to save his energy for the next stage rather than wasting it on trash. From a distance, a cold gaze tracks every development, observing each move of the participants. The woman recognizes the identity of the troublemaker. He is the son of the North District Director, a man who has grown arrogant due to his family's power. Though he is an eyesore, Abset hasn't broken any rules yet, leaving the onlookers unable to intervene. The crowd gathers below the inner zone where the gate to the second stage awaits those strong enough to move forward. Ida dismissively judges that the qualifiers are nothing more than this, finding nothing worth his concern. Abset stands silently before the blue light of the massive structure, preparing his next schemes. Suddenly, Abset hears someone calling his name, a spark of electricity crossing his suspicious eyes. Abset's eyes widen in surprise. He immediately turns toward the source of the voice. Abset roars in fury, demanding to know who dared call his name, but the surrounding crowd panics and denies it. A confirmation echoes. The person is the level rookie everyone has been talking about. The crowd parts, making way for two figures walking through the heavy rain. Kale walks with confidence, Talent by his side, both heading straight toward Abset through the downpour. Abset cannot believe his eyes. He doubts whether Kale and Talent actually wiped out his group of men. Suspicion turns to rage as Abset assumes Kale must have bribed his subordinates with money. Talent looks at Kale nervously, admitting that he has been carried by Kale throughout the entire journey. Abset turns his back, declaring he has no time to play but will leave a few people to keep Kale company. Abset orders the execution of Kale, his eyes burning with intense hatred. Abset's subordinates surround Kale and Talent, sneering as they draw their weapons in preparation for the attack. Talent looks around in panic, facing hundreds of enemies, and tremblingly asks Kale for their plan of action. Kale calmly orders Talent to cover his head, preparing to unleash his power. A surge of electromagnetic energy erupts from Kale's body, causing the surrounding air to vibrate violently. Abset is momentarily startled as he senses the danger emanating from Kale. Kale lunges forward, delivering a devastating counterattack that sends Abset and his subordinates flying backward. Abset loses his footing, his face showing clear signs of shock as he is completely overwhelmed by Kale. Talent watches on in utter amazement, unable to believe what is unfolding before his eyes. Kale stands face to face with Abset amidst the shattering space. Abset coldly declares that the previous threats were not heavy enough to convey his true intentions. Kale's gaze hardens, murderous intent enveloping the area. Without the slightest hesitation, Kale firmly asserts that death is the only outcome awaiting Abset in this place. Lith's group has just arrived in the central zone. They are still shaken, recalling how they were intercepted by the Red faction and barely escaped with their lives, if not for their timely coordination. Thaus questions his own speed. Despite his best efforts, those guys are still a step ahead of them. Thaus stands at third place, while Crimson holds the second position. Crimson doesn't miss the chance to mock Thaus for his gluttonous eating habits. All eyes are fixed on Abset. He is the true monster dominating the top of the leaderboard. The system confirms Abset has reached level 16, a number that leaves everyone in shock. Liths and the female character worry about Kale. Kale always acts alone, and they don't know if he might run into those people blocking the path. Suddenly, a figure falls from above. The system announces that Kale has just entered the central zone. It is Kale. He appears in a disheveled state after the impact. The female character cannot hide her astonishment at Kale's sudden appearance. Liths observes him intently, her eyes never leaving Kale. Amidst the crowd, a tall, dark silhouette emerges. It is Hak Long, Black Dragon. Hak Long coldly declares he will not allow anyone to leave while the game is still ongoing. Leslie wonders why a level 0 is targeting him right now. Nu Heat, the heroine, standing beside him cannot hide the anxiety on her face. Hak Long orders Fred. If the situation goes south, Fred must be the one to intervene. Fred is stunned by Kale's closing speed. He wonders if he could have achieved that level in his youth. Abset roars. He is fed up with Kale constantly blocking his path. Abset warns Kale that what is coming next isn't just a simple fight. It is a complete overwhelming dominance from Abset. 100 people attack Kale at once. The sound of crackling electricity rings out, signaling a brutal massacre. In his mind, Kale has only one goal: to avenge Betty, then wipe out this entire arena. Abset maniacally orders his subordinates to rush in and finish Kale off. The chaotic melee breaks out. Kale faces a barrage of magic attacks from all sides. Kale moves like lightning, gliding through attacks amidst the constant crackle of electricity. A subordinate lunges forward, activating his ultimate move, determined to claim the reward from Leslie. Kale blocks the fist with his bare hand. The subordinate gasps in horror. Giving his opponent no time to react, Kale lands a thunderous punch to his face. Powerful punch sends the subordinate flying, crashing hard into the ground. The crowd is stunned. Defeated in one hit? Abset screams, forcing everyone to charge at once. Kale remains unfazed by the mob, coldly declaring that fighting them one by one is a waste of time. Immediately, the system records that Kale has activated Frozen Body to block a fire attack, while his defense stat increases by 10%. Without giving his opponents a chance to react, Kale decides to end this farce. He activates the ultimate skill, Lotus Explosion, as a surging flame energy ignites on his hands like a deadly fire lotus. The power from the fire lotus rotates violently, creating an energy vortex that sweeps everything in its path. Massive explosion occurs, blasting away everyone attacking Kale. The entire battlefield shakes violently under the force of the strike. The attackers are completely overwhelmed, their bodies blown away like leaves before the raging firestorm. Witnessing the horrific scene, the observers are left in shock. Leo exclaims in disbelief, wondering if this is truly Kale's skill. Abset cannot hide his panic at the explosion, while Crimson remains casual, full of sarcasm. Kale stands there, his gaze as sharp as a blade, fully in control of the situation after wiping out his enemies. From afar, the observers cannot believe their eyes. They wonder if a rookie can truly unleash such a devastating strike. Leslie cannot hide his horror, shaken by the scale and destructive power of the attack, unable to fathom how an anomaly could use a fire mage's skill. Litz is also taken aback, admitting she never knew Kale possessed such a terrifying area of effect skill. No wonder he was so confident when entering the insect-hide region. Kale silently contemplates his hidden trump cards. He decides to use only 30% of his Lotus Burst power. After all, his opponent is merely human, and he doesn't want to finish him off just yet. Dust begins to settle, revealing a scene of utter devastation with countless enemies fallen, leaving only Kale standing tall in the middle of the battlefield. Kale stares straight at Abset, coldly declaring that now only Abset remains to face him. Abset trembles, unable to believe that hundreds of his men have been wiped out in the blink of an eye. He screams, demanding to know who Kale is and why he is targeting him. Kale steps forward, his voice filled with killing intent. He exposes the fact that Abset attacked his friend, and he has come today to settle that painful debt. Abset shrieks in madness, boasting about his father's power in this region and gloating over how he absorbed the Karma Stone to reach a level mere mortals could never dream of. Abset contemptuously calls Kale a nobody, claiming he is nothing compared to his own status. In a fit of insanity, Abset unleashes the purple lightning cannon, determined to annihilate Kale immediately. System immediately warns of the threat from the purple lightning cannon and activates Insight for analysis, though the decryption process has only reached 1%. With terrifying speed, Kale dodges the lightning strike by a hair's breadth, leaving Abset in total shock. Abset collapses, unable to believe that a low-level fighter could possess such monstrous dodging speed. He completely breaks down, admitting his defeat. In a state of extreme panic, Abset screams for his subordinates to save him. A powerful gust of wind sweeps across the area as a subordinate appears with blinding speed to protect his master. That subordinate declares that even if it defies the law, he will not allow Leslie to come to any harm. Abset smugly threatens Kale, asserting that his subordinate is a high-ranking bodyguard who will tear Kale to pieces. Fred, the one addressed, coldly acknowledges his master's order, ready to dive into the fray. Kale senses the enemy's presence via his magic radar. They are approaching from behind at an extremely high speed. It's not just one, multiple enemies are lunging at Kale all at once. Massive explosion occurs, yet Kale remains standing, calmly facing the new wave of attacks. Kale's sharp, cold gaze sweeps across the battlefield, where the dust from the horrific explosion has yet to settle. Kale nonchalantly sits on top of Abset, ordering him to keep talking. Thunder rumbles as Kale coldly declares that no one else will stand in their way. Surrounded by oppressive purple electricity, Kale stands tall in front of the trembling Abset. Abset continues to scream stubbornly, using his family background as a threat to save his own life. Kale remains completely unmoved, leaving Abset lying motionless in the pouring rain. The vow to avenge Betty has finally been fulfilled, and Kale lets out a sigh of relief. In the distance, the female character watches silently with sad eyes and flushed cheeks. Leslie stands beside the female character, unable to hide her shock at the power Kale just displayed. Kale proactively pauses the purple lightning cannon's skill decryption at 99% to preserve his state for the next phase. Amidst the rain, the sound of Lith's calling out breaks the silent atmosphere. Kale turns around in surprise, recognizing that familiar voice. It is none other than Lith's, standing there waiting for Kale in the rain. Along with Lith's and Leo have also appeared. Lith's gently reminds Kale about the freezing rain. Lith's anxiously urges Kale to quickly find shelter to avoid catching a cold. The system confirms that Kale has entered the inner zone with a rank of 7. Thaus rushes over to hug Kale, expressing the extreme concern felt by him and Lith's. Telent immediately questions the excessive intimacy between Lith's and Kale. Telent proudly asserts that he is Kale's most compatible partner. Lith's cannot believe that Kale managed to make friends and form a team behind their backs. Thaus sarcastically retorts by asking about their team name, piquing curiosity. Telent confidently asserts that she and Kale have already come up with an impressive team name. Telent is curious to know what that name is. Kale is left speechless, trying to stop Telent from revealing the embarrassing name. Telent excitedly boasts about their team name AA with great pride. Thaus bursts into laughter, while Lith's remains determined to defend the name. System notification rings out, confirming that 500 contestants have reached the inner region and the second phase has begun. The system announces the details of the 1-hour solo monster hunting challenge. The group is shocked by the difficulty of the second phase where they must fight alone. Hoga breaks into a mysterious smile. He has been waiting for this moment for a long time. The challenge begins and the elite characters reveal themselves, including Kale, all ready to face this brutal performance. A massive structure appears where thousands of contestants are gathered, waiting for the next challenge. Kale and his teammates stand before the giant iron gates where the second stage of the exam awaits. Thaus feels the gloomy atmosphere here. Thaus turns to question Kale about Kale's level. Thaus continues to wonder how Kale can be so powerful despite being only level 0 while Kale remains silent. Litz interrupts, reminding Thaus not to try digging into the secrets of Kale's ultimate techniques. Litz gives Kale a meaningful look. Litz wants Kale to keep his true strength hidden from curious eyes. On the high platform, Draco appears alongside powerful figures. Draco loudly asks if all the contestants are ready. Witnessing the appearance of legendary figures, Kale's teammates cannot help but feel shocked and anxious. The crowd buzzes upon recognizing Draco and Thaus, legendary names in the warrior world. Draco stands there with the calm demeanor of someone who has led the tournament for 13 years. Draco begins to explain the rules for the second stage of the Salvation Alliance qualifiers. The system displays the scoreboard. Each type of monster will grant a different number of points depending on the difficulty level. Draco emphasizes that there is only a mere 1-minute break before being pushed into the next wave of challenges. Full of confidence, David declares he will sweep through everything from basic to nightmare level in a single go. Kale steps forward. Kale wants to ask Draco a direct question before everything begins. The surrounding contestants begin to whisper they doubt Kale's abilities and believe Kale was just lucky. David laughs mockingly, jeering at Kale because he thinks Kale is scared now that this round is a solo competition. Draco signals Kale to go ahead and ask anything before the match officially starts. Kale calmly asks if Nightmare is truly the highest difficulty level. Draco looks at Kale with an intrigued gaze while Hugo continues to mock him. David continues his arrogant boasting, asserting that for a nightmare-level beast, killing Kale would be a piece of cake. David contemptuously thinks Kale is only good at bragging without having any real strength. Draco coldly replies that there is no upper limit in the challenge zone. If Kale is strong enough, Kale will see the results for himself. Worried, Thaus advises Kale not to overthink it as nightmare-level monsters are at least level 10. Draco explains that the score here will directly determine the chance to join the Salvation Alliance in the future. Realizing the importance of the score, Kale decides he will use the treasure. Kale tells himself he must seize this opportunity to surpass that massive point milestone. The gates open, the order is given, and all contestants begin to enter the challenge zone. Stage 2 officially begins. Kale enters and faces glowing red eyes waiting in the darkness. Stage 2 officially begins. Kale enters and faces 10 level 1 demon hounds, low-level creatures that only grant 100 bonus points. Kale thinks to himself, finally, he can get his hands on these monsters. He activates the ultimate skill Ice Body, his whole body covered in a cold aura. Kale realizes these monsters cannot help him increase his stats and the bonus points are too meager. He cannot waste time on them. In the control room, Huga grumbles as Draco continues to watch Kale on the main screen instead of switching to Lith's match. Huga smirks, asking Draco if a battle featuring Kale isn't much more interesting. Suddenly, Huga exclaims, he's moving. Draco frowns, asking if there's a need to make such a fuss. Kale dashes like a gust of wind, streaks of blue energy flashing past as he quickly closes in on the pack of demon hounds. In just a single second, Kale wipes out the entire pack of demon hounds, earning 100 bonus points. Draco exclaims in shock, 1 second, even killing 10 pigs would take a few minutes. Thaus proudly tells Draco that he told him so. Kale is far more interesting. Draco ponders, although 10 demon hounds are only level 1 and an ordinary transcendent could destroy them in one hit if they went all out, the next round will feature a level 8 monster and he doesn't think Kale can take it down in a single blow. As expected, Kale faces a massive level 8 fire lizard, a standard tier monster that grants 500 bonus points. A man in armor commented, saying Kale must be struggling against a monster 8 levels stronger than him. However, Thaus completely disagreed, stating that a level 8 fire lizard posed no threat to Kale. Draco inquired about the other contestants' situations. The man in armor quickly replied that he had been too focused and would switch the main screen to split mode so everyone could follow the top 10 matches. Litz secretly thought her father was intentionally diverting attention, not wanting too many people to witness Kale's skills. Draco looked at his tablet, remarking that most of the other superiors were still struggling with low-level hellhounds. Litz unleashed a flurry of icy attacks, barraging a monster. Meanwhile, David, with his slick-back orange/auburn hair, swung his massive hammer, delivering a powerful blow to his enemy. Only Liths, at level 16, could match Kale's pace. She was fighting amidst a horde of tree monsters, using green energy to fend them off. One of the tree monsters shattered under Lith's attack. Suddenly, Yiren gasped in alarm, "Look at Kale." Kale took a direct hit from the fire lizard's flame breath, his entire body engulfed by the massive inferno. Draco worried if Kale was exhausted after defeating the Hellhounds too quickly, making him unable to dodge. The man in armor said that taking a direct hit from the fire lizard's flame breath was no laughing matter and requested the rescue team to prepare. But Thous stopped him, telling everyone to keep watching. He secretly thought, with the speed Kale had shown, he should have easily dodged that attack. Amidst the sea of flames, Kale's body emerged, enveloped in a layer of sharp dark blue ice armor. It turned out Kale had activated Ice Body to withstand the attack. Without hesitation, Kale unleashed a sharp ice blade, slicing straight through the fire lizard's body. A clean cut was clearly visible on the monster's tough scales. In just 5 seconds, Kale finished off the fire lizard, earning 500 bonus points as it slid and collapsed. Draco exclaimed in astonishment, "Kale is completely unharmed. That black ice has covered his entire body." Draco was still stunned, wondering if Kale could defeat the monster with a single blow, why he deliberately took the attack. Kale thought to himself he couldn't miss any opportunity to boost his stats. He had used Ice Body to block the C-grade fire attack, gaining a 10% defense increase. Kale calmly observed the stat panel displayed before him, confirming his defense stat had reached 434. Without hesitation, Kale pressed the button to skip the rest period. He wanted to immediately use the next monster to test his defensive power. Outside the monitoring screen, Draco nodded in approval, affirming this was the perfect round to challenge Kale's agility and combat thinking. Analysis data showed the electric rhino was extremely dangerous when charging. It covered its horn with electrical energy, causing mixed physical and electrical shock damage. A level 10 electric rhino appeared, offering a 1,000-point reward, a true threat to anyone who dared stand before its horn. A charge from the electric rhino allowed no room for error. If defense wasn't tough enough, Kale would be instantly pierced through. And without electrical resistance, Kale would be completely paralyzed by the power of the current from the electric rhino's horn. Draco pondered, believing the only way to clear this round without taking critical damage was to utilize agility to find an opening and finish off the electric rhino. But then Draco was stunned, utterly bewildered by what Kale was intending to do in that perilous maze. Kale didn't dodge, he calmly approached, reaching out to directly touch the electric rhino's horn, which glowed with electrical energy. A dull thud echoed as Kale told himself this horn was the perfect test subject for his defense. The electric rhino roared, its breath puffing out in furious defiance as Kale's disregard infuriated it. It began accumulating maximum electrical energy. Without hesitation, the electric rhino unleashed a powerful charge, the sound of impact tearing through the air as it lunged straight at Kale. The direct impact sent Kale flying backward, sparks of electricity coursing through his body. Yiren watched the screen, utterly bewildered by Kale's reckless and incomprehensible actions. Gugu also had to admit that he never truly understood Kale's intentions. However, Thous was also astonished because no matter how inscrutable Kale's actions were, they always yielded better results than anyone expected. Kale activated Lightning Soul, absorbing the entire C-grade attack. His agility stat increased by 5% and he declared the test complete. Kale's eyes blazed crimson with murderous intent. It was time to end this round. Kale activated Lightning Soul, powerful electrical currents enveloping his body, creating a streak of light that shot straight forward. The system announced Kale's agility stats surged by an additional 50%. The burst of power pushed his speed to a new limit. The electric rhino panted heavily, beginning to sense the impending danger from the one it had just attacked. Kale glided like the wind, leaving streaks of electric energy tearing through the air as he charged straight towards the electric rhino. A lethal slash from Kale struck down, finishing off the electric rhino in the blink of an eye, completing the round in just 7 seconds. Thous stared at the screen in utter astonishment, exclaiming that Kale had cleared 3 consecutive difficulty levels in less than 15 seconds. Thous admitted that speed was even faster than his own record, and he knew Kale was still holding back. Draco narrowed his eyes, gazing into the darkness. He knew the real challenge still lay ahead. It was a terrifying monster with razor-sharp claws, capable of tearing everything apart in a single instant. It possessed a colossal maw, spewing forth iron chains, ready to devour anyone in its path. Coupled with a massive body encased in steel-hard armor, this next foe was truly a nightmare for Kale. Draco mused, asserting that the electric rhino was the most ferocious monster of the qualifiers, the ultimate target every contestant must overcome. The electric rhino revealed itself with level 15 nightmare tier power. A tiny Kale stood before the electric rhino, which was roaring terrifyingly. Kale activated True Piercing Orb. A stream of purple energy pierced straight through the steel armor, finishing off the electric rhino in the blink of an eye. The electric rhino collapsed completely. The system announced that the projectile speed of the skill Kale had just used had increased by 200%. Witnessing the clean finish, both Draco and Thous were utterly shocked, unable to believe Kale's terrifying power. Silence enveloped the control room as Draco and Thous trembled at the unimaginable events created by Kale. Kale stood amidst the wreckage, his projectile speed stat having now accumulated a 900% bonus. Every action of Kale's was meticulously recorded through surveillance camera lenses under the watchful eyes of Draco and Thous. Taking only 3 seconds to earn 5,000 points, Kale coolly demanded a higher difficulty level, leaving Draco and Thaus utterly stunned. The Titan entity roars, unleashing a wave of destructive energy within the prison space. Liths activates her C-rank water cannon ultimate, determined to wipe out the remaining Madhounds to level up. Kale doesn't rest for a second, pouring all his energy into mana recovery to become the first to meet the ranking criteria. Kale's progress toward the ranking threshold hits 100% under a brilliant glow of light. The system announces that a Transcendent has defeated a Nightmare rank monster in just 21 seconds, taking the top spot. Liths and Yiren are stunned by the announcement, suspecting that Kale is the one who just shattered every record. Kale calmly faces the dark void, ready to venture into the next difficulty level. Hugo is shocked to see Kale take down a level 15 Titan entity with a single blow. Hugo smiles with excitement, ordering the difficulty to be increased to test Kale's true limits. The system updates a new quest: confront 2 level 15 Titan entities with a reward of up to 10,000 points. Kale feels bored as the increased difficulty merely means multiplying the number of monsters. The Titan entity roars, preparing to charge at Kale with overwhelming pressure. Kale focuses intently, realizing the golden opportunity to land the finishing blow just as the Titan entity lets out its roar. Purple-black energy erupts from Kale's hand, forming a powerful, piercing sphere. The Titan entity is destroyed, and the speed of the energy sphere immediately surges by another 200%. System parameters show that the flight speed of the sphere has reached a cumulative 1,100%. The supervisor is astonished by the irrational power of the black sphere, wondering if it even has a limit. Hugo reveals that Kale's ultimate technique still has one fatal flaw. Second Titan entity charges forward with terrifying speed, the ground shaking beneath Kale's feet. Kale is stunned to realize that this Titan entity is faster than anything he has ever faced before. Hugo explains that the massive size of Titan entities often leads people to mistakenly believe they are slow. Kale concentrates his mana, preparing for the decisive counterattack. Activating the piercing sphere, Kale launches his attack toward the charging Titan entity. Hugo analyzes the Titan entities have no mana stats, but in exchange they possess extremely high physical stats. The Titan entity's stats reveal it is a speed-specialized monster, and Kale's sphere misses by a hair's breadth. Kale is shocked to see his attack effortlessly dodged by the Titan entity. Hugo notes that while the black sphere has great power, its speed is not yet enough to finish off agile targets. Kale possesses keen combat instincts. He always seizes the moment the Titan entity roars to strike. However, if Kale cannot increase the sphere's speed, his journey here risks coming to an end. Kale launches a long-range attack, with magic circles cutting through the air straight toward the target. A massive explosion echoes as the attack connects, thick dust obscuring the view. Kale realizes that launching attacks from mid to long range is completely useless against the Titan entity. Hugo observes Kale, wondering why he persists in using the black sphere even knowing it cannot hit the Titan entity. But upon seeing Kale's cryptic smile covered in purple electricity, Hugo suddenly realizes he was wrong. The system announces the activation of the Heart of Thunder skill, the ground beneath Kale cracking instantly from the erupting energy. In a blink of an eye, Kale turns into a streak of light, dashing away and leaving the stunned Titan entity behind. The Titan entity swings its massive fist at terrifying speed, creating a violent gust aimed at crushing Kale. The Titan entity's fist slams into the ground, creating a cataclysmic explosion, but Kale has dodged just in time. Yiren is stunned, covering her mouth at the sight of the dangerous battle unfolding. The supervisor panics and orders a rescue team to be prepared immediately, knowing full well the Titan entity's power is not something Kale can withstand. The supervisor freezes when spotting something burning with eerie magical energy in Hugo's hand. A sharp weapon, cloaked in dark aura, rests firmly in Hugo's grasp, ready for a finishing blow. Hugo keeps a calm expression, seemingly having calculated every move of the Titan entity. The Titan entity's fist begins to shatter, debris raining down like a storm under immense pressure. The Titan entity's attack misses its target, leaving only a deep crack in the stone foundation. The Titan entity roars in fury, hunting for Kale's location. The Titan entity turns around, its glowing red eyes scanning the battlefield. Just then, Kale unleashes a critical strike, a surge of purple energy piercing through the Titan entity's body. Kale focuses all his power into his hand, the electricity surrounding his body intensifying. A brilliant flash of light erupts, shattering all the shackles on the Titan entity. Chains on the Titan entity snap, signaling the end for the foe. The system announces that the level 15 Titan entity has been eliminated and Kale's speed is significantly boosted. The battle ends in 12 seconds with an impressive score. Kale stands tall in the center of the battlefield. Yiren breathes a sigh of relief, her face showing clear joy as she sees Kale safe and sound. The supervisor looks at Yiren with suspicion, failing to understand why she is showing such excessive concern. Yiren blushes and explains that she is only worried about the safety of humanity, with no other intentions toward Kale. The supervisor just remains silent, noticing the unusual shift in Yiren's attitude. The supervisor questions how Yiren could be so certain that Kale would dodge the attack. Yiren asserts that Kale's speed has always surpassed that of the Titan entity, so the evasion was entirely predictable. Kale is clashing with the ferocious Titan entities, the electrical current enveloping his body lighting up the entire space. As the lightning bolts erupt, Kale's speed increases terrifically. In this state, Kale completely dominates in speed, making it impossible for the Titan entity to even touch a hair on his head. Even after downing 2 monsters, the supervisor remains astounded by Kale's recklessness. The supervisor believes that with his current score, Kale could easily stop to secure his lead. But Kale's goal is not just to win, Kale wants to push past his own limits. Kale does not allow himself to stop for even a second, straining himself to unleash his power. System notification: Nightmare level, facing 3 level 15 Titan entities, reward 15,000 points. Roars echo through the air as the Titan entities charge with overwhelming killing intent. Skill activation: Heart-piercing orb. Kale launches a direct attack, tearing through the air toward the Titan entity. Witnessing such willpower, Hugo cannot hide his admiration. That is precisely why Hugo thinks so highly of Kale. The supervisor recalls the past, when Kale himself tried his hand at the nightmare level and failed. The supervisor sighs in concern. Although Kale has the strongest physique in humanity, facing 3 Titan entities at once is still too much. On the surveillance screen, Kale's stats are fluctuating violently. The Titan entity swings its claws, moving at such speed that it creates razor-sharp wind trails. In the split second of extreme peril, Kale lands a precise strike on the Titan entity's weak point. Using the lightning heart to enhance his agility, Kale maneuvers behind the Titan entity in a flash. The second one has fallen. System confirmation: level 15 Titan entity eliminated. Projectile speed of heart-piercing orb increased by 200%. Kale pants heavily, his eyes fixed with determination on the final monster. The Titan entity charges, its red eyes burning as if to swallow Kale whole. The collision is so powerful that the Titan entity's armor begins to crack. The Titan entity still roars aggressively, preparing for its final counterattack. Kale Kong Yi Nao Nung Kale Kich Ho Tua Chiu Lin Hoa Bong No Quiet Tom Ketu to the Titan. A colossal entity roars, unleashing destructive power throughout the dungeon space. Kale activates his ultimate move, wiping out every obstacle in his path. The system notifies that his skill range has increased, pushing the total reward to an impressive figure. Amidst the fiery battlefield, Kale stands firm after a fierce clash, setting a record-breaking score. Fred is stunned by the scene unfolding before him, gasping in disbelief. That was the very explosion that wiped out hundreds of enemies in the blink of an eye. Kale gasps for air, his mana completely depleted after that last attack. But thanks to a special passive ability, Kale can recover mana as more monsters continue to appear. System detects a target, and Kale's mana is instantly and significantly restored. Fred cannot hide his astonishment. Kale is challenging the highest difficulty, a record few have ever achieved before. Fred waits nervously to see how far Kale will go, while Kale is being fiercely attacked by the enemy. Kale realizes that as his speed increases, hitting his opponents becomes slightly easier. Kale tells himself that if he increases his speed a few more times, he won't even need to close the distance to attack. With very little mana left, Kale is forced to calculate every single strike with absolute precision. Kale gathers his strength, magical energy surging around his hands, ready to deliver the decisive blow. Monster suddenly spits out chains, wrapping them tightly around Kale in an instant. Kale's eyes widen in shock, unable to believe the opponent is using chains to restrain him. The monster swings the chains violently, throwing Kale away. Chains tears through the air at terrifying speed. Kale is jerked toward the monster, the situation becoming extremely dire. Kale roars in anger as the heavy impact lands. Held in the monster's crushing grip, Kale cannot find any leverage to fight back. The pressure from the monster's grasp leaves Kale gasping for breath. The haunting sound of bones cracking echoes through the air. Monster slams Kale into the ground, creating a crater upon impact. Kale lies defeated amidst the rubble, his body covered in wounds. Witnessing Kale fall, Fred panics and calls for backup. Kale's defeat leaves Fred reeling, realizing that even someone as strong as Kale couldn't overcome this. The sight of Kale lying there brings back painful memories for Fred of his own past. Without hesitation, Fred decides to rush into the battlefield, shouting for everyone to retreat. Inside the tense control room, Kale refuses to give up, his gaze steadfast as he faces every risk. Fred is extremely anxious, pleading with the master to step in and save Kale before it's too late. The situation has reached a critical point. Kale is standing on the thin line between life and death. Even so, the master maintains faith that Kale still has hidden trump cards yet to be revealed. Fred skeptically asks again because Kale looks like someone who has lost all hope, but the only answer he gets is a look at his eyes. The look in Kale's eyes right now is definitely not that of a man about to fall. To destroy his opponent, Kale has made sacrifices and pushed himself to the limit to become stronger. System responds instantly, activating the omniscient eye skill and continuing the decoding process. Kale remembers the moment Leslie's skill activated omniscient eye when facing the B-rank purple lightning cannon. Kale had deliberately paused the decoding process just moments before its completion. Every preparation made beforehand was for this explosive moment as the purple lightning cannon is fully decoded and Kale acquires the level 2 lightning heart skill. Leslie is stunned to see the blue lotus appear, hoping it can save Kale's life. Even Leslie has never seen Kale use this technique before. The level 2 lightning heart skill allows Kale to absorb B-rank lightning attacks and convert them into incredible speed. Cracking sounds echo as the new power begins to permeate Kale's body. Beyond just increasing stats, all damage and negative status effects on Kale are completely cleansed. Kale unleashes a powerful punch, tearing through the very fabric of space. The impact of the strike creates a massive shockwave. Kale declares he will turn this battle into a massacre as his stats skyrocket at an astonishing rate. Fred is terrified by Kale's superspeed regeneration, which surpasses even the most elite healers. With the opponent defeated, Kale's projectile speed increases by 200%. Kale continuously finishes off his enemies, his strength becoming increasingly unstoppable. Clearing nightmare difficulty in just 31 seconds, Kale asserts that no matter how many giant foes he faces, he will never lose. One giant after another falls beneath Kale's lightning-fast strikes. Kale's bonus points have reached 2,700%. Kale continues his rampage, completing Tier 5 Nightmare difficulty in 57 seconds. Not stopping there, Kale pierces through his opponents, reaching 30,000 points at Tier 6 difficulty. The observers are left frozen, unable to utter a word at Kale's brutality. A question echoes in terror: is this hell? Looking at such horrific slaughter, one must wonder, who is the real monster here, Kale or those giants? Kale sits amidst the ruins of the machines, breathing heavily through his shackles. The question of who the true monster is remains hanging in the blood-soaked air. Kale strains himself, his blue eyes glowing with exhaustion. He roars in frustration, craving a greater challenge rather than this deathly silence. Fred stands before the control panel, his face pale, cold sweat streaming down his forehead. He stammers, unable to believe what he is witnessing on the surveillance screen. Fred's trembling fingers press the emergency button, desperately trying to find a way to salvage the situation. Fred is choked for words, his eyes staring blankly into space. His voice shakes violently as he admits the grim reality that the reserve stock is completely empty. The harsh truth is revealed: Kale has slaughtered every single machine prepared for this test, rendering all of Fred's efforts to stop him meaningless. Kale has wiped out all of the Iron Prison Titans prepared for this trial. Kale wonders in confusion, had he truly destroyed them all? Isn't this trial supposed to have no limit? Even though he couldn't recall exactly how many he had taken down, Kale was certain that with this many, his score would definitely not be inferior to any rival. More importantly, Kale had achieved his goal. The system announced 11 level 15 Iron Prison Titans defeated. The flight speed of the Piercing Orb skill increased by 1,100%. Flight speed of the energy orb reached 38 meters per second, equivalent to a 3,800% cumulative stack. At this velocity, it was even faster than cars driving on the road. Suddenly, a flash of light appeared, and Kale noticed something else. Kale's gaze focused on the strange object that had just appeared. Kale suddenly remembered this unique mechanism. Since leveling up is impossible, the experience points gained from killing monsters in the trial zone automatically condense into Karma Stones. Draco and the others were stunned to see the Karma Stone appear. They knew that a single blue stone contained tens of thousands of experience points. Hugo remarked that if any transcendent being had entered instead of Kale, they would have absorbed all this experience and leveled up at a dizzying speed. Kale calmly collected the stone, his eyes filled with calculation. With nothing left behind, Kale decided to leave the trial zone. The heavy door slowly opened with a screeching sound. Draco exclaimed with excitement as he saw Kale step out. The system announced that Kale had completed the second stage of the qualifiers in first place. Draco approached him, showering praise on Kale's immense potential. Draco promised to arrange the most powerful instructors for Kale. Kale politely declined, saying he already had a mentor, but Draco persisted, arguing that he deserved better resources. Hugo cut in, urging Draco to recruit Kale at any cost. Hugo mentioned that Kale had helped him previously, to which Kale replied that it was just a small matter. Hugo confidently asserted that Kale was a student of Ignis, leaving Draco stunned. Draco could not hide his extreme astonishment on his face. Draco asked to verify the information from Hugo while Kale stood by watching. Hugo firmly confirmed that Kale was indeed his student. Draco now understood why Kale possessed such formidable skills. Yiren appeared, offering medical assistance if Kale was injured, but Hugo brushed it off, believing Kale was just fine. Kale smiled, reassuring everyone that he was only slightly tired and would be fine after some rest. Draco nodded in approval when mentioning Huga's student who had once cleared out monsters during the second stage of the competition. Draco explained that the difficulty of the trial had been raised to level 6 to prevent similar cases and perhaps it would soon need to be raised to level 8. Draco, Hugu, and the others gathered to watch the performances of the contestants in the second stage, which had just begun. At the scene, a contestant was exhausted beside the carcass of a hard-level monster, the progress bar having reached 100%. This contestant gasped for air, his hands trembling with no strength left, regretting that he couldn't face the nightmare-level monster. The system announced that a contestant had completed the second stage in 17 minutes and 17 seconds with 1,600 points. Liths was exhausted from maintaining a giant water orb. She admitted she lacked high-damage techniques to pierce the electric rhino's defenses. Kale heard Draco's comments about the contestants stopping and he immediately countered that defeating a hard-level electric rhino was an impressive achievement. Draco wondered why they hadn't left the trial zone yet, even though the rules did not allow early departure except in special cases. Hugu observed the screen and smiled confidently as he saw another contestant reaching the threshold of the nightmare level. Another contestant was unleashing a powerful attack on the Iron Giant, utilizing the strength from a rare karma tool to gain the upper hand. A contestant skillfully dodges an opponent's strike, proving that she is far from an easy target in this battle. The summoned creature roars ferociously, its body cracking open to reveal a truly terrifying true form. In its completed form, the massive monster stretches out, radiating overwhelming pressure. Direct punch lands, triggering a powerful shockwave among the contenders in the trial arena. Yiren is taken aback by the spirit's transformation, warning Kale to stay cautious against such unpredictable soul masters. Kale ponders deeply, he realizes the value of the spirit and decides to have the Black Hound absorb experience points from now on. Kale's eyes narrow, an intense focus etched onto his scarred face. Kale is stunned to catch sight of a familiar presence emerging within his field of view. A figure appears clad in crimson armor, wreathed in dark energy that leaves everyone in awe. This character confidently claims it is the strongest epic-grade karma tool ever forged. An armored hand clenches tightly and an explosion of energy erupts into the surroundings. The system displays the stats for the Dragon Slave armor, plus 100 to strength and agility, along with a passive stat boosting effect over time. The character reveals that this treasure has a soul of its own and he had to go to great lengths to obtain it from his father. Charging into battle, the character is well aware of the armor's 15-minute time limit and knows he must end the fight before the severe side effects kick in. Terrifying speed, the character is determined to tail Kale at any cost. The character lands a powerful blow on his opponent, proudly boasting about his perfect duo. Kale offers a faint smile, acknowledging that his opponent's performance was truly impressive. The notification bell rings, officially bringing the second phase of the Salvation League qualifiers to a close. The top 10 contestants on the leaderboard have secured their spots in the national tournament, with the top 2 receiving a mysterious reward. After the fierce battle, Kale collapses on the ground, breathing heavily but with a look of pride in his eyes. He tells himself that aside from Flory, no one can surpass him. Second place is already in the bag. Just then, Draco appears with a stern expression, loudly announcing that the top 10 leaderboard rankings are about to be revealed. The electronic board displays shocking numbers. Kale sits firmly at the top with over 100,000 points, leaving everyone else behind by an unimaginable margin. The surrounding crowd is left in disbelief. They gasp in astonishment seeing Kale's score far exceeding even Tagel's, with some even speculating he has surpassed contenders from all 5 continents. Kale sits up in shock upon hearing he hit first place. He can't believe how he managed to accumulate such a staggering amount of points. In another corner, a warrior with a fierce aura gazes at his blade, silently admiring Kale and looking forward to the day they can spar. Liths is left speechless by the massive point gap, questioning whether she is truly cut out for the path of combat. The national results are officially confirmed. Kale leads by 65,000 points over the runner-up, a total landslide victory. Even without seeing the face hidden behind the mask, Yiren can feel the satisfaction radiating from her powerful father. He praises Kale as a rising dawn, shining more brilliantly than ever with every passing moment. Kale lies stretched out on the cold ground, a satisfied smile on his face as the score of 106,600 is confirmed. He tells himself that this championship position must surely be a well-deserved reward for all his recent efforts. Kale stands up, looking at the opponent defeated at his feet, confident that he has lived up to his own expectations. A comrade stands before Kale, not hesitating to praise him for doing a great job and far exceeding all initial expectations. Kale can only manage a wry smile, his face still a bit dazed from the intense battle. From above, Draco loudly declares the official conclusion of the 21st Salvation League qualifiers. Kale carries his comrade off the battlefield, finishing the final grueling leg of the journey. In District South 1, a solemn atmosphere covers the plaza where the leaders have gathered. An elderly man with a snow-white beard sits with his eyes closed in meditation, surrounded by those awaiting his orders. A man grumbles about being woken up early just to watch the old man put on a show, but is immediately reprimanded to show respect for the leader of the southern region. That man is none other than Bhagwan, known as the great prophet of humanity. Man remains skeptical, questioning why they had to wait for the barriers to appear before hunting the beasts if they could already foresee the future. He wondered why Bhagwan couldn't predict the exact landing spots of the monoliths to set up an ambush. Harad explained that Bhagwan only sees fragments of the future, yet his abilities are still on par with the leader of the northern region. Suddenly, Bhagwan reached into the air with a look of horror, as if he had just witnessed a terrifying omen. Those around him panicked and rushed to support Bhagwan as he gasped that the northern region was in grave danger. In the silence of the night, the rustling of leaves signals an extraordinary shift. Kale calmly checks his status board. His total stats have officially crossed the 1,500-point mark, an unimaginable figure. According to Thaus, ordinary awakened ones only receive 50 points per level. The gap between Kale and the rest is growing wider by the moment. Converted to standard levels, Kale's current power is equivalent to a level 30 expert. A deep green aura begins to envelop his body, causing the space around Kale to distort. Power erupts like a raging fire, incinerating every barrier standing in Kale's way. Though his mana is constantly restored by his passive skills, Kale still ponders ways to further increase his physical strength. The call for dinner interrupts his train of thought, pulling Kale back to reality. Liths and the chef excitedly call out to him. Tonight's dinner features all of Kale's favorite dishes. Pushing his calculations aside, Kale decides to enjoy this rare moment of peace. As the sumptuous feast appears, Liths cannot hide his excitement at getting to enjoy Thao's cooking. Looking around the table, Kale suddenly notices Talent's absence and asks about his condition. All of Talent's wounds have healed, but he is still fast asleep due to complete exhaustion. Surprise is evident on everyone's faces when Kale's feat of defeating a high-level opponent is mentioned. Thaus teases Liths, asking if the food is so good that he's frozen in place, but the truth lies right behind them. Talent, with glowing red eyes, suddenly appears right behind Thaus, freezing the atmosphere instantly. Talent mumbles, demanding food in a state of extreme hunger, radiating an ominous pressure. Table breaks into chaos. Thaus jumps in shock, nearly falling off his chair at Talent's sudden appearance. It turns out to be Talent. He is devouring the food manically despite Thaus grumbling. Ignoring his dignity, Talent buries his face in the bowl to satisfy his empty stomach after the battle. The look of utter happiness on Talent's face as he enjoys the delicacies makes all his exhaustion seem to vanish. Thaus takes pride in the miraculous energy-restoring properties of the dishes he has personally prepared. Talent spares no praise, claiming that Thao's culinary skills far surpass even his awakened powers. In the middle of the merrymaking, Harad suddenly speaks up with a serious question about the group's ideal of becoming saviors. During the feast, Harad unexpectedly poses a haunting question to the group. What is your greatest fear? One member of the group ponders deeply, suggesting that their greatest fear is the direct opposite of their deepest desires. He confesses that his greatest desire is to become a savior, earn plenty of money to travel the world, and enjoy the finest food while he is still young. Therefore, his greatest fear is aging, when his strength fades and his palate is no longer sharp enough to savor life. The fear is so chilling it makes him shudder, and he turns to ask Liths about his own fear. Liths replies gently, he grew up in a family of doctors, so he has been associated with hospitals since he was young. The image of patients suffering from various illnesses has been deeply etched into Yiren's mind since childhood. The sound of patients coughing remains a haunting memory he can never forget. Because of that experience, Yiren developed an extreme fear of all illnesses, even a common cold. Everyone suddenly understands why Liths always keeps his distance whenever someone sneezes. Harad immediately reacts when someone sneezes near him, terrified to the point of needing to dodge instantly. Talent speaks up to reassure them, reminding everyone that with double the lifespan of an ordinary human and the disease immunity of a transcendent, such fears are far behind them. When it's his turn, Talent also begins to share his deepest, most hidden feelings. Talent confesses that his greatest fear used to be failing the entrance exam for the Salvation League. But now, what terrifies Talent the most is no longer being able to fight side by side with Kale. Talent turns to Kale. What about you? What is your greatest fear? Kale felt a bit flustered as he suddenly found himself the center of attention. The group was curious whether someone as powerful as Kale could truly feel fear. Kale drifted into silent reflection of the past. When his parents passed away, the world became an incredibly strange and disorienting place for him. Pain, anger, a sense of helplessness, and gnawing hunger had once consumed every cell in Kale's body. He had remained trapped in that darkness until he met Yiren and his current comrades. They found Kale huddled all alone and gently urged him to look up at the beautiful sky instead of keeping his head bowed in sorrow. Cared enough to ask if he was sick and provided him with warm meals to soothe his pain. That familiar warmth pulled Kale back to reality, and he couldn't hold back his tears. The presence of his comrades had completely changed Kale's life. Kale looked at them with a shocked expression. Their care truly moved him to his core. Kale, they were no longer just comrades, they had become his true family. With a smile, Kale admitted it had been a long time since he felt this way, and he truly wished time could stand still forever. He affirmed that his greatest fear was having to face this world all alone. Sensing the shift in Kale's soul, Yiren felt more relieved and at peace than ever before. Harad reminded them that fear is inevitable when Kale, Yiren, and Talent have chosen the path of saviors facing true peril. Harad asserted that the only ending for a savior is a death without regrets, to which Kale, Talent, and Yiren responded in unison with unwavering resolve. After the meal, Harad ordered the group to rest and reminded Yiren to return to the North 6 Zone for training tomorrow. The next morning, as they prepared to part ways, Yiren didn't forget to tell Kale to cook for him next time, while they all agreed to meet again at the Savior Alliance National Tournament. Kale was surprised to see Yiren becoming so close with others, which left him feeling somewhat unsettled. Kale decided to leave, but he still had a lingering question for Yiren that he had to save for the national tournament. Kale suddenly froze when he heard a strange name being mentioned. Kale was stunned to see Yiren rushing toward Harad with a deeply anxious look on her face. Yiren breathlessly reported to Harad that an urgent classified report had just arrived from the southern region. Harad calmly asked about the content of the report, while Yiren still couldn't shake her visible distress. Yiren explained that this was a top-secret document reserved only for level 50+ saviors and the leaders of the continents. Harad asserted that Kale and Talent were qualified to know this, leaving Talent taken aback by his trust. Yiren announced that Bugvan, the leader of the southern region, had issued a new prophecy regarding a beast invasion in the northern region within the next 3 days. Facing Kale's skepticism regarding Bugvan's reliability, Harad affirmed that he was the most brilliant master of prophecy and his visions were absolute truth. Yiren proposed escorting Harad away from the northern region immediately, believing that the beasts were definitely targeting a specific objective. Harad calmly admitted that the sole target of the beasts in the northern region was none other than himself. Harad revealed that him staying here was precisely to serve as the perfect bait for the enemy. Yiren panicked and objected because Harad was not a combat-type savior, while Talent offered to stay in his place. Harad stood firm in his decision and assigned Kale a separate mission that was even more important than protecting him. Harad ordered Kale to accompany Talent to protect Aiden, Talent's father and the greatest master blacksmith, from danger during the invasion. Talent was deeply moved to learn that Harad had considered his father and allocated forces to protect him, making him wonder if he was doing all this for his sake. Harad continued to issue 3 orders to Yiren: broadcast the news of the invasion, evacuate the civilians, and prepare all level 50+ saviors for combat. Finally, Harad ordered the rest to be summoned to the north, where he would directly confront the beasts to avoid putting civilians in harm's way. Yiren reports to Harad that everything has been arranged as planned. Even so, Yiren cannot hide her hesitation, her eyes filled with deep contemplation. Yiren asks why Harad is letting Kale leave while the Transcendents are still being protected. Yiren admits that she can never hide anything from Harad. Yiren's face flushes slightly, looking somewhat flustered by Harad's keen insight. Harad explains that this invasion includes level 100 monsters. If Kale joins the fray, he will have to reveal his full power and become a target for endless pursuit. He points out Kale's weakness is his currently limited power, whereas the enemy possesses an artifact that can buff their stats. Once Kale acquires that artifact, he will become a perfect being with superior strength, defense, and mana stats. Combined with his agility, Kale would become a transcendent with absolutely no weaknesses. Just then, massive black boulders descend from the sky onto every sector, thick protective barriers emerge, and the invasion officially begins. In the North 2 sector, Kale and Talent are moving at high speed, with Kale noting they are only about 100 kilometers from Talent's home. Kale estimates the invasion could strike at any moment within the next 3 days, and they must reach Talent's father immediately. Talent points to the sky in shock, urging Kale to look. Kale is stunned as he follows Talent's gesture. A giant boulder is crashing down onto the city, and Talent exclaims that the invasion has started right in the heart of the metropolis. A deafening explosion rings out, and a blinding light engulfs the city area. Kale and Talent stand motionless, witnessing the chaos unfolding before their eyes. Kale is worried because the civilians haven't had time to evacuate. If monsters swarm from the boulder, the consequences will be unimaginable. Talent notices protective barriers forming, leaving them with a difficult choice: ignore the boulder to continue their mission or stop to save the civilians. Kale observes that Talent is exhausted from non-stop running, and he understands her desperation to see her father. Talent decides they must help, warning Kale that there are level 20 monsters inside the barrier, and if no transcendents are there, it will be a catastrophe. Kale agrees to change plans, and both decide to slay the monsters and destroy the boulder to save the people. A loud boom echoes as the boulder is struck directly. A level 21 flame golem appears with a roar, engulfed in raging flames. Talent's group assesses the situation, believing that with a squad consisting of levels 15 and 16, they can surely take down this level 20 monster. A warrior activates a C-rank stone shield skill, asserting he will be the primary tank to protect the squad. Meanwhile, the teammates prepare to find an opening to land a finishing blow on the flaming beast. The flaming monster charges with terrifying power, shattering the ground beneath its feet. A massive explosion occurs, immediately sending everyone nearby flying. The warriors fail to hold their ground, shouting in terror at the monster's overwhelming strength. Watching their teammates defeated in a single blow, the remaining members panic and scramble to find a way to survive. Facing the monster, one group member screams a warning, urging everyone to flee immediately. A coward who had fled long ago screams frantically, terrified of the impending death. He is filled with absolute dread as he realizes the monster has closed in right behind him. In his panic, he falls to his knees, begging for his life and offering to become a slave in exchange for survival. But then, he suddenly remembers that he is a water element user, the perfect counter to a fire element monster. The group still doesn't dare to be complacent, demanding an immediate killing blow to ensure safety. The water element user refuses to let anyone else claim the credit. He wants to land the final blow himself to gain the experience points. He brandishes his weapon and charges, determined to deliver the final strike. But unexpectedly, the monster regenerates even more powerfully than before, leaving everyone in shock. The flames erupted violently, the intense heat forcing the group to realize in despair that they had reached a dead end. The fiery attack swept through everything, triggering a terrifying explosion. In the nick of time, Kale appeared like a savior. Kale and Talent dove into the fray, reassuring everyone that they would handle this monster. Kale ordered Talent to evacuate the civilians while activating his enhancement ability to intercept the monster's attack. The arrival of Kale and Talent left those around them stunned, wondering if these were the true saviors they had been waiting for. Talent did not hesitate to respond, declaring that they would become the greatest of them all. Others remained full of doubt, believing Kale was just an ordinary person incapable of facing the monster. He stared intently at Kale's armor, curious if it was some kind of precious treasure. Herat appeared, offering advice on using the black orb cautiously in battle. Herat emphasized that it was their trump card and shouldn't be revealed to the enemy too soon. A cold warning was issued: anyone who lays eyes on the black orb must be silenced. Kale understood the situation perfectly. With so many people watching, he couldn't afford to use the black orb. Gazing at Kale's armor, the crowd murmured in admiration, convinced he was a true master. Deciding against his secret technique, Kale chose to crush the monster with raw power alone. Activating his latent power, Kale lunged forward at blinding speed. A thunderous impact occurred as Kale delivered a crushing blow to the flaming monster. The fire monster roared, its entire body covered in lava and ruthless flames, ready to crush everything in its path. Kale dashed forward with terrifying speed, blue electricity surging around his body, and struck the monster with a bolt of lightning. A blast shook the space, the shockwave from the collision causing the ground to tremble violently. Onlookers gasped in shock, unable to believe their eyes as they saw Kale standing atop the monster. Doubt was etched clearly on the man's face. He simply couldn't accept the reality playing out before him. The once fearsome monster was now nothing more than a toy beneath Kale's feet as he completely overwhelmed the battle. As the dust settled, Kale had vanished without a trace, leaving those who witnessed it in complete bewilderment. Kale had departed with Talent the very moment he finished off the monster. Even though he considered Kale weak, the man was forced to admit that Kale's terrifying speed far exceeded his own ability to keep up. Kale and Talent quickly fled the scene. Kale's power and speed left everyone around them terrified. Kale told himself that if he couldn't finish his targets in a single strike, he would be in danger against stronger enemies in the future. Kale needed to get stronger and much faster.